Good evening. I will call the meeting to order at this time. If you will, please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. This time I'll call on Councilman Barber, if he will lead us in the invocation, please.
Let's pray. Lord, I thank you so much for the opportunity we have that we can come, we can do business for the town of Smithfield. I pray, Lord, you help us to be attentive and alert and listen to the things that are said so we can make the right decisions. I pray, Lord, that whatever we say and whatever we do would be to the benefit of the people of Smithfield. Lord, I thank you so much for the opportunities that we have that we can share in making our town better. For us in the mighty name of Jesus we pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, gentlemen, you have the agenda. Any changes to the agenda? There is one known change that I have, which is to remove business item number 1, consideration and request for approval to adopt ordinance number 518-2023, creating a social district in downtown Smithfield. Any other changes to the agenda?
Mayor, I would move that we please move the citizens' comments to before the public hearings, just for the sake of the community that may not want to sit through the public hearings that we have listed.
Okay, any other changes, recommendations? Okay. If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so before we get started, see the county manager out there, Mr. Hester. Welcome to the county staff as well. Welcome this evening. Hope everybody's doing well. We will move on then to citizen, I believe. Did you say before the public hearing, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll then move to citizens' comments. Anyone wishing to speak at tonight's meeting, if you will, please come forward. I will ask that you state your name and address for the record, and that you hold your comments to 3 minutes, please. And I'll ask the clerk if she will take the time.
Mayor, members of the town council, good evening. My name is Edward Barfield. I reside at 219 North 4th Street. What I bring up here now is some of the same thing from the last time that I was here about the drainage and flooding that's been taking place in our community. And I got pictures right here if you want to pass them around.
It is North Fork.
These pictures were taken Saturday night, I guess around 9:30 when we had a big torrential downpour. This problem really is not going away until the town does something about it. I spoke on this before about the same thing, and there's nothing being done. Nothing has been done. We want, as a community down there, we want the drainage clear. We want it fixed. It was taken out, and it's been a mess ever since it's been taken out. This been going on for too long, over 5 years or better. I remember we was having a funeral there, and we didn't know it had a torrential downpour. When we come out, cars just about getting taking water inside their cars. You know, this is kind of, embarrassing, and why are we getting this right here? Why do we have to sandbag our church? Baptist Church on North 4th and Castle Street. Why do we have to have sandbags to put around doors and stuff to keep water, filth and stuff like that going up? There's a sewer main in the middle of the intersection. When you get all that water, that mixes with it that causes disease, germs, and everything else. I'm pretty sure y'all don't want stuff like that over there in your yard or your house or wherever you live at. We don't want it either. All we want to do is to have this problem taken care of. So what I'm asking, when can this problem be taken care of? Because it's gone far too long. This church here, Baptist church right down here, it don't have any sandbags to it. It really don't. We shouldn't have to have any either. Now, you spend money on everything else, millions of dollars on everything else. I know you spent money on whatever that thing is over there at the water plant. You know, probably several $1 million on that right there. A few $1,000s, maybe $300,000 to $400,000 or $500,000 to be spent to fix the drainage problem in a community. We pay taxes too. I pay my light bill. If I don't pay my light bill, guess what's gonna happen? Y'all can turn it off. We just want the situation fixed. That's all we want. I mean, I can't stop, I can't keep moving my car uphill. You know, I can't. And I'm not gonna get out there in that nasty water, you know, trying to get to my car or either, if I might have to leave an emergency. What's gonna happen when I leave emergency? I can't leave because my car up on the water. My house taking on resident. If my state take on water, where can I go at? Can I go stay with one of y'all? Really? Can we get this problem fixed, and when can we get it fixed? When can this be taken care of?
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Mr. Major, I think you're aware of that situation there. If you could please, check back. I know personally, because I was there, I saw staff with the engineer, I think Lawrence, and our town engineer there several months ago, because I personally just happened to be riding down and saw you guys evaluating the situation. So, but I don't know where it stands. So if you don't mind, if you could check into that and let us know.
Mr. Barfield, do you want to leave those with the clerk for the record?
Yes, sir, because I have more.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Yeah. Will you leave your telephone number with the clerk, sir? Or contact information? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' comments, if you will, please come forward. You will state your name and address for the record. And if you'll just give me a second till when the clerk finishes what she's doing, we'll get started back, sir. Okay, go ahead,
Robert
sir.
Stanley, and thank you, Mayor, and the rest of the board. I'm here on the same issue as Mr. Barfield. As a trustee of First Missionary Baptist Church, like he said, we have to sandbag around our doors due to the flooding there. Last Saturday, May 18th, around 9 o'clock, water way above my ankles when I stepped out of my truck to see about the church, and the drain system there is not sufficient. Ever since it's been changed from what it was, we've been having problems and having to sandbag our church. And at one point, it was flooding inside the church and had to get it cleaned with all the dirty water, sewage and everything. So if possible, yes, we need some help to resolve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak? If you will, please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Barbara Monk. I am residing at 115 LaFour Drive in Clayton, North Carolina. I'm here to speak on the same issue. I am a deaconess at First Missionary Baptist Church, a historical church. Over 150 years, we have been on that corner. Tell me if I am wrong that there is a space from the street to the church that is public, well, not public property. It does not belong to the church. It belongs to the Smithfield. And it is taken care of by Smithfield. Is that correct? Am I wrong?
No, it's an
Oh,
easement.
you
You're
don't answer the
correct.
question. Okay,
So we don't know the answer to that question, ma'am.
You
So
really don't?
I have no idea what the church owns and what the church doesn't own and what the
okay,
town
well,
owns,
I
to be
know
quite
that
honest
with
with you.
residents,
So,
there's so many feet to the street.
and
that
let me
it's-
just be clear, we will not be answering questions
okay,
here
well,
this
that's
time. This is
fine.
public comment this
Okay,
month, so.
all
so
right.
just
Well,
want-
let
I just
me-
want you to set the expectations right, okay,
Okay,
clear.
Well, that's
okay?
fine. I
Right.
have no problems with that. But I do have a problem, though, with entering into a church where the carpet is still wet. There's dampness there. And I'm highly allergic, and so I start sneezing. This should not be the case. Now, I've been a member for about 14 years there, moving back home. And recently, with whatever was done, and I assume it was done by the town, there has been a problem with the flooding. It should not be. We are an older church. Our membership does not have a lot of young men who can move those heavy sandbags. We shouldn't have to do it anyway. We really shouldn't. And so I can only assume that maybe not enough members have been here to complain, or maybe we're not paying enough taxes. Maybe you don't think that we are citizens that deserve any kind of attention. All I can figure is that maybe you just really don't care. I don't know. But the lack of action says that not enough attention has been given to the corner of 4th and Caswell. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward.
My name is Tracy Sanders. My address is 55 White Oak Drive, Smithfield, North Carolina. My concerns tonight is that we're basically being told that we're receiving a harbor home in our neighborhoods as far as for, I guess, rehabilitation for substance abuse. Now, I'm not against that at all as far as like the second chances of substance abuse, but my concern is this neighborhood is an established neighborhood. I've been in that neighborhood 20 years. And it's the type of neighborhood that people, when I came in, they bought me cakes and pies and they invited me into their homes. You can go and leave your front doors open, drive around the streets, whatever, and talk. My concerns are, with it being a place like that, who's to say what we'll get, the turnover rate. There are families that have been there. I'm one of the youngest families, and I have also a neighbor here tonight, one of the youngest families there. I just don't feel it's right the way it was brought in. The way I was told by the realtor is that an elderly couple from Florida was going to basically be moving in, and then I found out that it's this. And like I said, my concerns are my grandkids, my neighbors' kids, and what may happen. You really don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody else, but when it comes to drugs and, relapses may happen. First thing they're going to do is come looking for that person. They may give up their location. And it's directly across the street from me. All these houses are close. And I don't agree with the way that it's coming and the way it's never been presented. We weren't told anything about this. It basically just showed up on, I guess, a Facebook post. So my concerns are what we may be getting. And I really want somebody to look into it and see what they can actually do about this. And if this is allowed. That's my concerns.
Which you're addressing him, Mr.
55 White Oak Drive.
Yep. So we are aware of that, just as of why, and we have already checked into it. So the manager, we can get with you as well and share what we can. But
Okay.
it's state law allows it. So just as an FYI. So, but if you can leave your information with maybe an email address or something, I think the manager, he's already researched it, so I know the answer to this one. That's why I'm saying it, because we are aware of it, right? So, anyone else wishing to speak? Just come forward. Oh, yeah, sorry. If you will, please state your name and address for the record.
Juliana Martinez, 53 White Oak Drive. neighbor of Tracy here, and same concerns. My understanding is that HUD housing codes allows these type of homes to be established anywhere. And my question is, would it be okay if the house was in Eden Woods? You know, would it be okay if it was, I don't know, across from DNV? You know, what's it called? The lake houses over there. We are within walking distance of schools. I have an 8-year-old, a 15-year-old. My neighbors have teenagers who wait for the bus across the street. They walk to wait for the bus, and then they're going to be seeing these type of people there. Again, like he said, I don't oppose it. You know, I'm in favor of anybody who's trying to recover and make a better of themselves. I just don't feel like it's the right neighborhood. And I understand that maybe the town of Smithfield can't immediately do anything about it, but there has to be something above that we can address or reach out to or talk to figure this out. This is a rental home, from what I understand. So it's not like, you know, Recovery Alive purchased the home. It is, from what I understand, they're going to be renting the home. So if they're going to be renting a home for this matter or purpose, why can't they do it outside city limits? You know, why does it have to be a neighborhood where kids literally cut the grass and they walk to Triple S? You know, because they don't need to ride the bus or have a ride from their parents. They can literally just walk across. And I just don't feel like it's safe. My daughter is 15. She plays soccer. She practices in front of my yard. You know, she goes out with shorts. You know, and from what I understand, this house is going to be a recovery house for men and men only. I don't feel safe. My husband works construction. Sometimes he's in and out of the house. Sometimes I have to stay at home with my 2 kids. And I don't feel like I'm going to feel safe to live in a neighborhood where I just don't know what the turnaround can be. And I just need further explanation on this. Because like he said, you know, we've been neighbors. We've been there for over 20 years. We purchased our home there. This is my first home and forever home. And now, you know, we're considering whether it's going to be our forever home. So if we can just get some more answers then, other than we can't do nothing because HUD allows it, I don't see it. Not if it wasn't in this neighborhood. If it was in another neighborhood maybe, I can guarantee you it wouldn't happen. So we just need some answers.
I can guarantee you it's allowed in every neighborhood.
Every neighborhood.
Every neighborhood. I can guarantee you that. Now, whether it goes there, that's a different story.
Right.
But
And
I
that's-
understand.
and that's my
but I
question, you know,
understand your
how can we
concerns.
prevent it?
Yeah.
So-
But I 100% understand your concerns.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Based off of the research that staff has given us, that is the case. But, yeah, but I certainly understand, and you have very valid concerns. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? No? All right, we will move on now to our public hearings. Our first public hearing this evening is annexation request, SST Properties. This is not a quasi judicial hearing, so there's no need for anyone to be sworn in. SST Properties has petitioned to voluntarily annex 15.26 acres located north of M. Durwood Stevenson Parkway and east of US Highway 70 Business West into the town of Smithfield. Stephen, I'll turn it over to you, and then I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So this is an annexation request by SST Properties, which is Samet. They're the ones that are developing the industrial park, the West Smithfield Industrial Park. So this annexation is, as you can see, that squiggly line on the map, that is the road, the future road for the Amazon and West Smithfield development. And the town of Smithfield's corporate boundaries were the southern line that you see there of those 2 triangles. That's where it was before Samet annexed in all the new properties that they purchased. This particular property was mostly in, but partially out of the existing corporate limits, and when they did the previous annexation, it was not included. Now that they're getting ready and are marketing the rest of the West Smithfield Industrial Park, they would like to bring the rest of the property in so that piece could be developed properly. And so essentially, this is a small piece to the greater project that they're working on. What you see in this image here is the previous annexation. And this is the current annexation. You can see the two triangles on the right-hand edge of the survey. Those areas are currently, say, out, and they're going to be brought into the corporate limits. Any questions on that? Okay. So the Smithfield will provide public water and sewer utilities, which basically have been extended into the site already. This annexation piece was part of a larger development parcel. The police department already provides protection in that area. Fire protection is by the town's fire district. Public Works, trash and yard pickup are not services provided to industrial properties, so there really be no impact there. The future road will be NCDOT maintained when it's brought into the town through public dedication. And then the town's already providing code enforcement in that area. The annexation will reside in the entire developable site to be within the corporate limits. So annexations are governed by 160A-31, requiring the public hearing, which we're having here tonight. The action requested is the public hearing and the adoption of ordinance 519-2024, which would extend the corporate limits over that property. The town has three options: to approve the contiguous annexation and adopt the ordinance number 506, table the decision for no longer than 6 months, or deny the annexation petition. Any questions?
Any questions for Stephen?
I have one question. What's the current zoning on this piece of property? Is it equal to the property?
It's light industrial.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Plan staff at this time? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? So if you will, please come forward at this time. Okay. I am not seeing anyone. If there are no further questions from council, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor. Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 519-2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. And now we'll move on to our next public hearing. No one needs to be sworn in for this one either. This is rezoning request Johnston County, RZ-24-02. Johnston County is requesting a zoning map amendment to rezone two parcels, 86.2 acres and a 5.53 acre tract located approximately 1,100 feet east of Yevilton Grove Road and US Highway 70 Business East intersection from B3 and R20A to office institutional. This time I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Stephen?
All right, thank you. So the parcel here identified in yellow, you can see above, there's some R20A, B3, the red along US 70, and more R20A to the south. So this parcel abuts the existing O&I, which is county-owned. So this will be a larger O&I zoning district. when this is all done, if this is approved. Their intention is to annex this into the town in the future with development. The site currently is just farming and a former manufactured home park, and the proposed use is government offices and other uses. Environmentally, there is a blue line stream that bisects the property from north to south. Otherwise, there really are no other major environmental issues. As I said, the annexation is expected with development of the parcel. So the comprehensive plan envisioned a larger O&I zoned area around a commercial node at the intersection. It's not exactly developing out that way, but it is a larger O&I, obviously stretching further south, but staff finds the request to be generally consistent with the comprehensive plan in terms of creating a larger O&I district, just not exactly the way we had planned. So with this rezoning, just want to acknowledge that fact. And so government offices and public safety uses, public utility, public works, storage, service yards, and pump stations are all allowed in the O&I district. Staff feels that this rezoning is consistent with the growth management plan, as would be amended with this zoning approval. Consistent with the Unified Development Code, it will be developed within the ordinances, and it's compatible with the surrounding land uses, as again, there's already O&I on adjacent lands, and this is just creates a larger O&I district. So staff recommends approval of rezoning RZ 2402 with a statement declaring the rezoning consistent with the Town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Plan as hereby amended and consistent with other adopted plans, and that is reasonable in the public interest. And I have a recommended motion for you. Any questions?
Any questions for staff? Okay. Amen. All right, anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter, if you'll, Mr. Leonard, if you will please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. My name is Brian Leonard with BRL Engineering and Surveying. We're at 112 East Johnston Street here in Smithfield. My role here tonight is basically just to facilitate any questions that you guys might have regarding the request and give you maybe a little more background than what's in the staff report. Currently, Johnson County holds an option on about 86 acres, currently owned by Glenda Massey and some others. We refer to that as the Massey Tract. It extends on both the north and the south sides of US 70, just east of the existing detention facility. Johnston County actually owns the 5.5-acre small tract on the north side of US 70, just to the east of the detention facility as well. Of course, these are the two tracts that we're requesting for the O&I zoning. You're probably aware that the town recently rezoned approximately 49 acres to O&I for Johnston County, just down Yelverton Grove Road, which would be contiguous with this larger Massey tract to the east. And just as before, the county is making this request in order to expand its government uses for a future campus for administrative and service-based facilities. Primarily, we're talking about office space and any accessory or incidental uses to the primary office uses. During the county's period of due diligence, there have been some very preliminary planning and budgeting, and as you can imagine, the county does not have any detailed plan for these facilities right now. There's still a lot of specifics that we don't know at this early stage, but what we do know is that the county's future uses will fit into the category of O&I zoning. As staff mentioned in their report, the comprehensive plan envisioned a larger office and residential presence in this area, comprised mostly of government uses. So therefore, we feel this request is certainly consistent and reasonable and in the public interest. Some of the more site-specific matters that we are aware of include the following. As was mentioned, we know there are riparian and buffered stream features on the southern portion of the Massey Tract. We feel we can utilize the high ground on the large tract, especially, and create access and utility crossings on both sides of that stream feature. But probably more importantly, the features extend along the south and the east portions of that larger tract, and they create a natural and a permanent buffer to the adjacent residential zoning in that area. Regarding utilities, we've had discussions with Mr. Creedle at Public Utilities. We know water and sewer exist at the intersection of US 70 and Yelverton Grove Road. Some of those services already supply the existing detention facility. And after preliminary discussions, we believe there's a path to extending these water and sewer facilities to these sites, whether it be along US 70, through the existing detention facility, or through the 46-acre tract that's already been rezoned. Additionally, there do not appear to be any known constraints to water sewer capacity. By the time any facilities are actually proposed out at this site, of course, we will revisit capacity, and we'll have to deal with any future capacity issues if there are any at that time. But currently, there are no known constraints that we're aware of. And we'll have to assess that also as we know exactly what the demands are in the future. And one final matter I think that's worth discussing. We mentioned it at the planning board and had some questions. But regarding traffic, I can give you some data that we do know. There's approximately 1,200 vehicles per day reported by NCDOT on Yelverton Grove Road, and that count was done in 2022. And that particular count has been virtually unchanged for several years. It really hasn't gone up or gone down. Of course, the real issue is US 70. And there were two counts conducted on US 70. There was a count conducted on the west side of Yelverton Grove intersection and on the east side of Yelverton Grove. The west side count showed that there were 11,000 vehicles per day westbound, and there were 9,000 vehicles per day eastbound. On the east side count, there were 9,000 vehicles per day westbound, 9,000 vehicles per day eastbound. So, of course, that's a lot of traffic. What all this means to both the county and the town, essentially, is that a fairly extensive traffic study is going to be required in the future. It'll be required and necessary as part of the development of these sites. And sort of like water and sewer, we'll have to assess how much traffic is being generated by any future uses. The county is aware of this. They're willing to deal with any requirements imposed by a traffic study and/or the NCDOT. And of course, all of that will have to be approved by NCDOT. This could and likely will include signalization and turn lanes. So the county's prepared to deal with that in the future when these future uses become known. So basically, in conclusion, we concur with the staff report and believe our request meets the criteria for rezoning, and we appreciate your consideration. I'll be glad to answer any questions that y'all have. As you noted, there's staff and officials here with the county as well, and if I can't answer anything, they may step in as well.
Any questions for Brian or county staff?
Yeah, hey, Brian.
Hey.
Appreciate y'all coming.
Yes, sir.
Just two kind of quick questions. One, and then one to reiterate the traffic, but the homes on the south end of that, I guess that Massey track or midway down, is there any plan to put any buffering in at the time of development for those homes?
Did you say on the south side of the Massey
Yeah.
track?
Yeah,
Let me take a peek, if you don't mind.
right
I can go back to the,
Yeah, the south. Oh, here.
Yes.
So the west side.
Oh, yeah, north is, yeah, that'd be south.
Hey, Brian, if you don't mind, can you,
Sorry.
so the whole council can understand where we're
Okay,
talking?
Perfect.
Right there, yeah.
Yes. There are no specific
Well,
plans.
right.
To be quite honest, until those plans are proposed,
Okay.
I'm sure that the county would entertain a buffer along that side.
Yeah,
And I don't want to volunteer that now without some type of specific plan.
I understand,
Being in place, but I think the county would be receptive to any adjacent residential uses being buffered. And also, as I noted, on the southern and the eastern portion, sort of the lower right corner of that larger tract, that's part of the buffered area.
Right.
And that will also remain permanently buffered along there.
There's that creek doesn't that creek split that?
There's a
So
creek that splits that, but I believe there's another one that
Can
cuts
you-
the corner on the
Can
south
you use
side.
that? I mean, is that south side is usable? I mean, if you were to, could you access it from 70? If you were to, say, go straight down?
Yeah, we would cross that stream feature that bisects it to get to that high ground if we had to.
I did have, guy who goes to our church mentioned that to me. And he had a little concern about living right there and whatever's
Yeah.
in the future.
I do think the county would be
Okay, just keep
very
that in mind.
amenable to put a buffer in.
And the traffic, I mean, I frequent that area multiple times a day. I have employees using that all the time. I mean, I know they're going to wait to want to have a traffic study, but any pressure y'all can put on the DOT to go ahead and consider doing that. I think it's
Right.
time now. I mean, I've sat there for 5 minutes trying to make a left at 4:30, 5 o'clock. Last week I was on the phone with Dad leaving. I said, oh, man, I was supposed to meet them to do something. I said, I'm 10 minutes late because I went that way and didn't go through town.
Right. I'm aware of the traffic.
Yeah, so just, I know y'all are doing the process, just want to reiterate, if y'all can put any pressure on the DOT through any other conversations, and hope our staff would too, that, I mean,
Right. I mean, I think that.
especially with the bridge about to be, all the construction going on that bridge, to tell what kind of more backups are going to happen with that issue, I mean.
Right. And I would suggest also the town
Yeah.
staff and officials do the same thing, because I do recognize that there's a lot of traffic, but it's hard for us to do something in advance of any facilities actually being proposed.
I understand.
Until we're aware of what we're actually adding to the corridor.
So, question for staff. Should this be rezoned and sometime in the future, plans are developed, will those plans have to come back to the council or just to staff?
More than likely, they're going to be administratively approved. I can't think of an example where something would
But
come before the
we would
council.
require a buffer between residential and
We have
overnight.
buffer requirements in the code, whether or not they're adequate or not. We always do our best to try to encourage site development that accentuates the existing, addresses the existing issues, and adding additional buffers as we can get the developers to cooperate with. But yeah, I mean, and then a traffic study will be required.
And we'll certainly do whatever is required. And I think there probably are town requirements between adjacent uses for buffering.
There are.
There is,
So
but
we would certainly do that.
whether that's adequate, I mean, you know what I mean, as far as to fit
Right.
Councilman Stevens' concerns,
But I think it would also depend on how close a facility or a building might be to them as well. That would depend on the intensity of the buffering as well.
Mr. Leonard, I have one question. Thank you for bringing this. Looking at the map, the south portion, I just was curious, the intent is to access this parcel from 70 and not from Yelverton Grove. There's no easement or nothing there that we're unaware of?
That is correct. However, the O&I that's on both sides of Yelverton Grove Road, we could access Yelverton Grove because that's county-owned. That was the portion that was recently rezoned. So we could actually loop some traffic between Yelverton through there.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Leonard or? So I had one additional question, well, two actually. So I see it's being serviced by the town for water and sewer, correct? But also Duke, as far as electricity. Do we have any infrastructure out there that would allow for a choice?
We're not close enough yet, man.
Okay, all right. And then the next question is would the county be willing to go ahead and annex this property into the town of Smithfield? That's maybe for the county staff question.
That probably is. That's not something I don't think we're prepared to do tonight or act on tonight, but I will defer to them.
Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. Yes, Mayor, we will be assessing that and would like to come back on that item of annexation if possible.
Okay.
Can I clarify one thing?
Absolutely. Sure.
Thank you. As we talk about a county facilities campus out there, I just want to emphasize that there are no plans to do anything with the judicial or the court system because that is slated to continue to be downtown. So I just want to clarify that. I know sometimes there's been concerns about that.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And I would just say that, obviously from a town standpoint, we're already having developers contact us about property in that area.
Sure.
And property further down. And we would certainly love to be able to have this property in the city limits so that we could continuously be contiguous on out that way. So I'd certainly hope that that's something that the county would strongly consider.
Sure. And I'll be in touch with Mr. Scott on that too.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. There are no further questions. I will entertain a motion. It's time to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Other comments? No?
Yeah, any other comments from anyone in the audience? Okay, sorry. I mean, I'd already asked.
Okay.
So I didn't see anybody. So, all right, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. What's the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve the zoning map amendment RZ 2402, finding it consistent with the Town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Management Plan as there hereby amended and other adopted plans and is reasonable and in the public interest.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and also just a reminder that from a rate standpoint, we do offer better rates for our in-town. So, thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Mayor, I'm proud of you. 100% correct.
All right, moving on now to our next one. This, again, is not a quasi-judicial hearing. Therefore, there's no need for anyone to be sworn in. It's a rezoning request, 1558 West Market Street, RZ-24-03. Lena Parks Patterson is requesting a zoning map amendment to rezone 2.41 acres of land located at 1558 West Market Street between M. Durwood Stevenson Parkway and Fairway Drive from R20A to B3 Highway Entrance Business. This time I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I make a motion to public hearing.
Motion and a second. All in favor? You opposed? Stephen, take care of
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
So the parcel in question is the one in yellow here. It sits adjacent to an auto sales salvage yard and adjacent to other R28 property to the north that's guided for light industrial. So the proposed zoning is B3, highway entranceway business. It's currently vacant. Proposed use would be some sort of business. This property is in town, and it's serviced by Smithfield Water and Sewer and Duke Electricity. There are no known environmentally sensitive areas on the property. The comprehensive plan guidance for this property is mixed use. We interpret that as kind of letting the market decide how it's going to develop. And commercial zoning and land use is consistent with that use, or that comp plan guide. The proposed zoning B3 is the most expansive commercial district with many permitted uses and special uses. So staff finds this application consistent with the growth management plan, consistent with the Unified Development Code, and compatible with the surrounding land uses. Staff recommends approval with a statement declaring the request consistent with the Town of Smithfield comp plan and other adopted plans, and that the use is, the amendment is reasonable in the public interest. And I have a recommended motion for you.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Any questions for Stephen at this time?
Is there currently any access to the highway or permit that you're aware of with this parcel?
I think access could be an issue when they develop it. Obviously, it'll have to be worked out. It's just off the map, but is it off of Computer Drive? You can see Computer Drive. I don't know what the name of the road is, like a frontage road that curves towards this property, but doesn't quite touch it. I think the right-of-way may touch it. So they'll probably have to extend either right-of-way or a driveway to get access into their property from that frontage road. I'm sure DOT will be involved, and it's kind of a complicated intersection.
Any further questions for staff? Okay. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter, please come forward. Ms. Laster, how are you this evening? A former council member as well. My apologies. I didn't see you sitting back over there. So welcome this evening.
Council members, you all are so lucky. And thank you for saying that. I'm a former town council member back in the 80s, early 90s. We didn't have a facility like this. We were meeting in the third floor of the hotel just across the parking lot.
Aren't you glad you're not meeting there now?
And the mayor at that time was Mr. Baker. He had a cushion made for me for my chair so I could sit over at the top of the table and see. So I commend you for this beautiful facility. I am Susan Lassiter. I am a broker with Fonville Morrissey Realty, and I am representing Lena Patterson Parks. On your agenda sheet, I think that's a last name that's reversed, but it's correct over there. So it's Lena Patterson Parks. This is her home site. She now lives in Washington State, so she was unable to be here tonight. Her home was there. It has been removed, so the property now is vacant. There was an access driveway because of the house being there, coming off of 70. It's just a small driveway that was suitable for a home, but there is access into the property. And there could be access developed off of Fairway Drive if the town wants another exit entrance. Right now, Ms. Parks does not have a particular use for the property. It is for sale, and we're leaving it up to a buyer to decide what use will be put there as long as it meets your zoning code. So we do ask for your consideration on the rezoning of this property so it will no longer be a residential category but a more appropriate commercial use.
Any questions for Ms. Laster, the applicant? Okay. All right. Thank you. So kind of the same question, Ted. So we have service by Duke. I'm assuming there's no choice in that area as well, as from an electrical standpoint as well. Okay. Thank you.
What about sewer, water out that way? Plenty?
Both water and sewer. Yep. Okay.
There is water and sewer, and water and sewer served the house at one time. Originally, there was a well there and probably a septic system, but yes, off the highway, there's water and sewer available.
Ms. Laster, do you know about what time that house went away or was last occupied? It's been a while, I imagine.
It has. She probably moved the house off this property, maybe 8 to 10 years ago. It's been gone for a while, so the lot is vacant.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If there are no further questions for staff, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the zoning map amendment RZ 24-3, finding it consistent with the Town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Plan and other adopted plans and that the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Laster. All right, moving right along to our next one. Again, this is not a quasi-judicial, hearing either, so no need for anyone to be sworn in. It is a rezoning request, Heavener Properties, RZ-24-04, Terra Eden Landscape and Design LLC, is requesting a zoning map amendment to rezone 9.61 acres of land, 0.806 acres located north of Powell Street and west of Adams Street with Johnston County Tax ID 1508919A, and then another 8.77 acres located north of Hartley Drive between Adams Street and Coates Drive and south of M. Durwood Stevenson Parkway with Johnston County Tax IDs 15K0901A and 15K09010P from R10 and R8 and R10 and R20A to R8 single, two, and multifamily residential. This time I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Stephen, turn it
Thank
over
you.
to you, sir.
I hope to make sense of all those zoning districts for you. The applicant is Paul Embler, representing Mr. Heavener, or the Heaveners. Again, 9.611 acres of land being rezoned from R20A and R10 to R8. So in yellow are the parcels that are going to be changed. There is a third parcel, I should say, a portion of a parcel that is south of Powell is going to remain R10, and it's showing here on the map as R10, not being changed. But it's attached to the parcel north of Powell, which is shown as R10. So the R10, the R20A, and the other R20A, these three parcels identified here in yellow will be rezoned to R8. It would be part of this future development with the remnant R10 on the south, not yellowed out, will be retained by the owner. And there's B3 property, kind of southwest, industrial to the west, additional R20A to the east, and then adjacent to some R8 north of Hartley, and actually on both sides of Hartley. And then most of the area is R10. Smithfield provides water and sewer. Electricity, again, is Duke, this being West Smithfield. It's currently within the town and within the Smithfield Fire District. There are no known environmentally sensitive areas on this property. The comprehensive plan guidance for this property is medium-density residential, so the proposed zoning is consistent with that designation. As I mentioned, the most southern piece is going to be split zoned with the southern portion remaining R10 and the north of Powell being R8, along with the rest of the properties. With the approval of the rezoning, consistency statement is required. Staff finds this rezoning consistent with the comprehensive growth plan. It will be developed in accordance with the town standards. And the third line dropped here somehow. But staff finds it consistent with adjacent land uses. So planning staff recommends approval of the rezoning RZ 2404 with a statement declaring the request consistent with the Town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Plan and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable in the public interest, and I have a recommended motion for you here. Any questions?
Any questions for Stephen, staff?
There's current access to that property?
The road will have to be extended. There's right-of-way, but the road's not built.
There's some type of a huge ditch and,
There's a very large ditch.
yeah, and, all the water from all that landmark apartments, all that stuff rolls right down by that neighbor's house, because he said something about it, so I know.
Yeah, then it heads over to the industrial district on the edge and goes south.
That goes on, is this part of this?
The ditch is
Isn't it?
yeah,
Is that
it's,
right where it says Adams Street's at, right there?
yeah. Where you see the two R20As?
Yeah.
The big ditch is really really following the edge of Hartley.
Part of what?
Where the R20A touches the Hartley right-of-way,
Uh-huh.
the ditch runs parallel to that, and then there's also, on the piece that's R10, kind of running down the west side of that is another ditch. There's a lot of water moving through there, and will be addressed through any future development.
The question is this land over here, I don't know that about that, but is that land, I guess it looks like it's just wooded right now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Huh?
yes,
So it's not being used for anything, it's just woodland
it's
right
just
now?
empty woodland right now,
So it's not used for agriculture at all right now,
not that I'm aware of.
unless you're harvesting trees?
Yeah, but I don't know of any plans for that either.
Mayor, I have a question. Mr. Winsman, it appears that, I'm trying to think, I guess this would be east side, the right side there that is developed is R8. And the property across the street's R8. There is a piece of R10. But for the most part, it's consistent with R8 in that area, if this was developed. Is that correct?
Right, it'll be adjacent to existing R8 and existing R10.
Okay.
And then access, if it were to develop, there's no access off of Durwood Stevenson?
No,
Is it?
no, that's a restricted road for access. So the access will be most likely off of Hartley, as it will be extended further to the west.
What are you talking about?
Any other questions for staff?
I thought that road already exists.
No, that's not really a road.
Oh, okay,
It's
it's
like
an
a
easement.
gravel driveway or something.
And what is this, Coates?
Yeah, that's what it says. That's a road.
Any other questions for staff? All right, anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter, if you will, please come forward. Mr. Embler, how are you, sir?
Doing just
If you will,
fine.
please state your name and address for the record,
Paul
please.
Embler, 11 Kentwood Drive, Smithfield, North Carolina.
Remember, where's your notes?
Where's my neighbor?
Notes.
Oh, notes.
It's notepad.
Years-
It's legal
years of-
pad.
Years of training with the town of Smithfield has taught me not to have notes in front of me. But anyway, appreciate Mr. Mayor and the council the opportunity to speak to you tonight on behalf of Dan Hebner. A few questions that you asked and your staff questions there. One, we've actually had the site looked at and for wetlands as well as buffered streams. And we both, DWQ has signed off and the Corps of Engineers, there are no wetlands on the site and there's no buffered stream. So that's good news. The access to Durwood Stevenson is a controlled access, so there is no access that way. It will go to Hartley Drive. Hartley Drive basically is not a road right now. It's a dirt path that only has a water line in it. And there actually, as Mr. Winsman was describing, there's two ditches on the, what would be the, can I step over here?
Absolutely. Mhm.
There's an old ditch line that follows this basically, and there's a ditch line here. They come together right here at the end of Hartley Drive. And then the outfall comes on down here and crosses over and comes and works its way up and down. So that's where the water is going. We have taken an engineering look at it. We've looked at, we can control the water as it comes through there. Let's see. Anything else that I might be able to answer for you? Oh, the R10 area there that Hartley Drive, all the property that's on that block is owned by the property owners that front Powell Street. And the backs are, is basically accessory buildings in the back. So it's R10, but the back part of it's not being used anything but for accessory structures. So, anything else?
Is this road passable? It's just tree.
Any other questions for?
Mr. Embler, I know you're very familiar. I think it's Coates. Could that be extended to give you access further down on that property? Because it's pretty large and narrow.
You talking about right here?
Yes, sir.
We've talked with Mr. Winsman about it. There's an existing residence right there.
Okay.
And it would require him vacating some of his property to get a right-of-way. We couldn't figure out quite how to squeeze it in. That map is off of GIS, and it doesn't quite realize what the survey actually showed when we surveyed the property. So it would take cooperation from that gentleman to put a standard right-of-way in there and road in there.
I wasn't aware. I was just curious because I'm sure you guys have thought about different plans. Obviously, if it's going to be residential, it would be
2 inches.
access would be something you would need. But you have frontage, but it would be deep lots, I would guess. But
It would depend on what we came up with. We've talked to Mr. Winsman about doing 2 access points to the property if it need be, and we've got a plan for that. If that comes up, that we can access it in 2 points.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Not seeing any at this time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? wishing to speak? Okay, not seeing any. All right, this time, if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, what's the pleasure of the council?
I move that we approve zoning map amendment RZ 24-04, finding it consistent with the Town of Smithville Comprehensive Growth Management Plan and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Looking forward to some stuff going on in West Smithfield, Mr. Hefner. Like to see you back more often. All right, so we'll move on now to our next public hearing. This is on page 67 of your agenda package. We've had a lot of them to go through this evening. Again, not a quasi-judicial hearing, so no need for anyone to be sworn in. This is a conditional zoning request, Local 70 PUD CZ-24-02. Smithfield Growth LLC is requesting approval of a rezoning of 163.62 acres of land, Johnston County Tax IDs 1405711Y, 145057011X, and 1405711Y, located on both sides of N. Durwood-Stevenson Parkway, bordered by Bookadary Road on the west and Highway 70 bypass on the east, and north of the Smithfield Walmart from RA and B3 to PUD conditional for a mixed-use development. This time, I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Stephen?
Thank you. So this is a large development, and as stated, the Walmart is the B3 in the red on the very south part of this map. You can see the US 70 bypass on the right. Durwood-Stevenson is the road that curves. Bookadary Road runs north-south on the west, adjacent to the part that's currently zoned R8. Take note, there is a small little B3 portion of the property on the west side of Bookadary Road that's part of this development. Just want to point that out. We put a sign out there so people would notice. And then there's existing B3 property, I think it's about 80 acres, kind of northwest of this property on Durwood-Stevenson Road, straight north of Bookadary Road. So with this project, the developer's vision was to create a mixed-use community guided by the current development patterns in the town. The master plan integrates traditional development patterns, kind of an urban pattern, with a mix of land uses, building types, and open space to create a pedestrian-friendly and walkable community. The PUD will have a residential density of 7.23 dwelling units per acre over roughly 87 acres, with a total of 627 dwelling units. 324, roughly half, will be multifamily. 94 of them will be townhouses, and 209 will be single-family homes. The smallest lot proposed is 40 by 105 feet, 4,200 square feet, with front street and rear alley access. So that's the smallest lot size they're proposing. Their master plan defines lots, streets, units, roadways, open space, building typologies, which I'll come back to, lot size, garage access, there's block diagrams, landscape buffers, and open space. Smithfield Growth LLC is the applicant. That That's Carolina Commercial is involved, and they did the assisted living facility up on Kelly Drive. This is currently in the ETJ. They will be annexing with development. There are some environmental features on the site. Water and sewer will be Town of Smithfield, electric will be Town of Smithfield. No parks are proposed in the comprehensive plan, so fee in lieu would be expected. South of Durwood-Stevenson Parkway, there are some non-jurisdictional ditches and wetlands. North of Durwood-Stevenson and to the east, there are potentially some jurisdictional and non-jurisdictional ponds, ditches, and wetlands. The site to the east of Durwood-Stevenson does contain a jurisdictional pond and blue line stream. So this is a concept sketch of what they intend to do on the residential portion of the development south of Durwood-Stevenson Parkway. As you can see on what would be the curve of Durwood-Stevenson, which is not shown, is you see some multifamily sketched in. This is more of an illustrative drawing that they had done. The whole idea here is then there'd be single family and townhouses, the single family closest to the existing single family and townhouses kind of the north and west for the most part. Kind of focused around a central park and the stormwater management, which creates a walkable recreational amenity, and then other green space and pocket parks throughout. And I'll get more images here. This is the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan proposed office residential, the area in blue to the north, mixed use to the east and south, and residential to the west, medium density residential. If you put that all together, mix it up, you pretty much have what they're proposing, which is a mixed use plan with essentially land uses that fall exactly where these comp plan designations are. So we find it consistent with the comp plan. So as stated before, this is proposed to be a mixed use. The area in pink closest to the Highway 70 bypass is a mix of commercial uses, probably light industrial, could be grocery, and there's a table later on in the presentation and in your packet that does talk about the specific proposed uses per area. You can see the area that's brown is multifamily, that's right on the curve of the road, and that's the portion that Carolina Commercial plans to actually construct themselves. And then you got lighter brown in kind of a yellow-green color, which are single-family and townhouse lots. And then there's the road structure, which I'll get back to further. Within the residential area south of Durwood-Stevenson, there you can check the land use table, but there is a potential for some more or less service commercial, like daycares or a small restaurant or coffee shop or something like that to serve the residents, and probably located on or near that central open space. So when they first came to the planning board, they really had this drawing and land uses listed here to the left, really called them character districts, and there wasn't a lot of definition at that time, and the planning board sent it back for some more information. And what this drawing does is identifies the general land uses per area, and he's got them labeled CD4, CD5, CD3A, 3B, open space, and PS being park space. Anyway, and with it on the left is coded all the land uses that are proposed within those areas. And it's going from more intensive uses out by the highway with less intensive uses as you move into the neighborhoods. So that was the concept. So again, the residential area has a density of 7.23 dwelling units per acre over the 86.67 acres that are south of Durwood-Stevenson, and that is well below the density that's allowed in the zoning district, or in the code in particular, and also in the R8 zoning district. 9.68 is what is allowed in the UDO. The applicant is requesting the approval of, again, 627 dwelling units with 324 multifamily, 94 townhouses, and 209 detached single-family. So this drawing shows the potential access. They've been working with DOT, and for the most part, this is the road structure that they're proposing. They do have an additional road to the south that would be right in, right out. But you can see the arrows, how traffic will go, and then you can see the diagrams to the north, what type of traffic feature that is. So it's a very controlled access, which really does limit any serious commercial within that area because of the access. It's really more a service to the existing or proposed residential uses that they're going to be bringing in. It's not like you're going to have great access for commercial. And so they are proposing this basic structure here of main roads cutting through that property. All the streets proposed are going to be 27-foot wide back-to-back in 60-foot right-of-ways or 33-foot wide back-to-back if there is parking on one side. They've got a more elaborate diagram here for road right-of-way with, they're proposing 60-foot wide rights-of-ways, 56-foot rights-of-ways, 50s. They have some private driveway and private alleys. Streets in blue are the private driveways. To the north of that Central Park, they are proposing more or less a private road. They may be putting front-end parking right off the road, so again, it's really just a driveway. It'll read more as a road, but it'll be designed as a driveway. And the alleys are shown, and so, as I said earlier, they'll be front-loaded. Front-loaded meaning the cars will be parked or access the front of the unit on a driveway, and there'll also be alley-loaded units in areas where you see the yellow on the map. Those are lots that have, those are the alleys which will provide access for the lots adjacent to them. So it's a mix of front and rear loaded. I think the intention was to have them all be rear loaded, but just the layout of the land didn't allow for it. They don't have enough space to geometrically just fit them all in, so it ended up getting creative with creating these blocks of front and blocks of rear loaded. Sidewalks are proposed on both sides of every street. Multi-use, multi-purpose trail will be on the south side of Durwood Stevenson, as shown in the PED plan. Public sidewalk will be proposed along Bookerdary Road and on the north side of Durwood Stevenson Parkway for the PED plan. They are proposing street trees in the streets, in the public rights-of-way, and they're committing to maintaining them, have the HOA maintain them and replace them if they die in the future. So one point, as I said, they're proposing 60, 56, and 50-foot rights-of-ways for public roads. The town's typical street section is a 60-foot wide right-of-way, and I want to make note that, trees and utilities, anything less than a 60 is sometimes tricky, fitting everything in. With a 27-foot wide right-of-way that does, 20-foot wide street does allow for some good-sized boulevards. When you add the parking, it gets tighter with less boulevard for all the amenities. And these are the street sections that they're proposing. The first one is the alley. It's a 22-foot wide, basically easement for an alley, and the alley will be 16 feet wide with concrete on either edge for curbing. The next one is the 27-foot wide right-of-way in 27-foot wide street in a 50-foot right-of-way, and the bottom one is a 56-foot right-of-way with parking on one side, and the main streets will be 60s, the ones that were in the previous exhibit.
Concerns me. This is the
On the left, again, is just the different land use districts, mixed use, multifamily, townhouse, and single family. And on the right is a diagram that shows which lots are to be front-loaded, alley-loaded, and the lot widths. So we have some alley-loaded that are 40-foot wide. Again, if they're 40-foot wide, you don't have to worry about driveway, 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 because all the access is in the rear that allows them to bring the lots in tighter, the houses in tighter to each other, and creating a nice continuous pedestrian frontage. So our comp plan says anything less than 42 feet really should be rear-loaded, and they are adhering to that with their plan. They have alley-loaded 50-foot wide lots, and then they got front-loaded 42-foot wide lots, which is the smallest that the comp plan guides us, saying anything smaller than 42 should be rear-loaded. They do have some front-loaded 42s, 50s, and then they've got some lots that could go either way, front or rear-loaded. So they've identified all that in the plan for the future development. As I mentioned earlier, there's no parks proposed in the park plan for this area. We are a half mile from the Shrek, and there should be good trail access and sidewalks access within this property, and then connecting it to the Shrek. Staff is recommending a fee in lieu of park dedication with the subdivision. And the master plan is showing significant open space, obviously the central park and the areas around the storm pond, but then you can see the parklets and the open space in this exhibit adjacent to road rights of ways and in and around the townhouse developments. So I got two exhibits here again about the open space, the central park, stormwater management feature with trails, and then an example of more or less a parklet, creating kind of a focal point for some single-family homes, which was found in the southwest portion of the development. At the planning board, there was some discussion about buffers, and the developer came back with an exhibit showing how they would buffer Booker Dairy Road. So we got a good number of houses. If you look at the diagram on the left, or the middle, a good number of the houses are fronting on Booker Dairy Road. So they're proposing more or less a hedge and trees, defining the edge of the street. With the houses facing Booker Dairy Road, like you'd see in any nice development, and the access would be from the rear. And there are some houses towards the south where that wasn't possible. So you've got the houses backing on Booker Dairy Road, and there they've got a more substantial buffer, substantial landscaping. Again, the sidewalk would still be going through there, and the houses would be fronting on that parklet shown there. Any questions on that exhibit?
But not driveway access from Booker Dairy.
No, not driveway. There'd be alley access, rear access. And again, this is kind of a diagram showing the different situations. So along Durwood Stevenson, there's a 50-foot wide setback from the public right-of-way. There would be adhering to that. Homes along Booker Dairy Road. They got here sidewalks, street trees, and evergreen hedges. So where the houses front on Booker Dairy Road, that's what you'll see. The homes themselves will be back 35 feet from the edge of right-of-way. The homes backing Booker Dairy Road will have street trees, a 6-foot tall fence, and landscaping, creating a buffer from Booker Dairy Road. And that's really for 3-4 lots only. This development backs up to the Bay Hill Road and it's called Booker Dairy Plantation Development. You can see there's some, in the lighter green, there's a existing open space, and then there's some stormwater features in some of it, which is already a buffer between these two developments. And the developer is also proposing to add a 6-foot high fence on the rear property line of those new units. And then adjacent to Bay Hill Drive, there are 2 homes that don't have that open space adjacent to them. So he's proposing some additional landscaping and fencing to create a separation between the Bay Hill lots and his development. Any questions on this exhibit? Okay.
A question, if you know, as far as the water from that area headed towards Bay Hill, do you know which way the flow would be?
I know the stormwater features flow towards Bookerdary Road
Okay.
in the Bookerdary Plantation development.
The only reason I ask is, and I'm sure, stormwater will be properly addressed. I used to live on Bay Hill, and some of the pictures that you saw this evening, the end of Bay Hill where it connects there floods all the time.
Yeah, it's flat.
And it's very, very flat.
Yeah.
So I would ask that a lot of detail goes into the storm water management runoff and not put any more water towards that subdivision at
Understood.
all.
Yep.
So.
And this is an exhibit of setbacks. So they're proposing where homes are rear access, they're proposing a reduced setback, a 10-foot yard setback from the property line to the home. So we're talking about really a pedestrian corridor. Homes would be tied up against the street, 10 feet off, much like we did at the Spring Branch development just south of here, towards 301, because those were rear-loaded also. And then where the homes are front-loaded, cars coming in from the front, they'll have a 25-foot front yard setback to accommodate a full-size vehicle in the driveway. And this is an exhibit just showing how the lot lays out if it were front-loaded or rear-loaded. Typical house. Options with the garage being right on the alley or pulled back from the alley, and then possible connections of the garage to the home with a breezeway, that sort of thing, or detached. So lot sizes and lot mix. The townhouses are proposed to be a mix of.
Stephen.
Yes.
Can you go back, please?
Sure.
You spoke of the right-of-way with those streets that are, you mentioned the front there with the front setback at 10 feet. How wide is that right-of-way in this section?
Diagrammatically, I'm not sure. It's not labeled, but it'd either be a 56 or a 50.
And that's where their address would be?
Correct.
So my concern is if the Amazon come by, they're going to go to the front of that house. Is there going to be enough room for another car to pass?
It's 27-foot wide back-to-back, and 33 if there's parking on one side.
If they have
And
a
that is a
guest, are
town
they going to
standard.
park in front of the house?
But that is a town standard. We have 27-foot back-to-back.
I'm talking about if you had street parking, if a guest pulled up there, that's the front of the house is what you're saying,
Yeah.
unless I misunderstood you.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So as I said earlier, there's, of the single-family and townhouse lots, I got a percentage of the mix of each. This was something the planning board was interested in. They're proposing a mix of 18-foot wide townhomes, 20-foot wide townhomes, and 24-foot wide townhomes, currently as in the plan. And I got a breakdown of the mix of the right now, how it's breaking down in terms of the number of each. And for single family, they're proposing 40-foot wide, 42-foot wide, 50s, and then a mix of front and rear loaded, and that's broken down here as well, just to give you an idea that there is a variety of lot width and front loaded and rear loaded. Okay? On the right are some examples of product types that they might emulate. They're not actually products that they're going to do, and I'll get into the architectural requirements that they're proposing, but these come from a variety of different developments. Chatham County, near Pittsburgh. And they also talked a lot about other precedents. Within the town, I think what they were most intrigued with was the Riverwalk development on Bridge Street, recently completed with lots sold on Bridge and Front Street. Those houses are roughly the same size and lot sizes and about the same height and material and similarities that they're thinking about. Especially with the rear axis as being a common thread. So some other things here. The minimum lot size, again, is 4,200 square foot, which is a 48% reduction from the R8 standards. This has been an issue in the past, but staff finds the reduced lot area and setbacks to be appropriate when you look at this development in its entirety. This is really an urban, walkable, pedestrian development close to services, walkable to the track for at least, kids. If there's any place for a tight development, it makes sense when they're putting in the street trees, alley access, short blocks, sidewalks on both sides with plenty of recreational amenities and open space within. I mean, that's kind of this new urbanist design, and they're not just putting in small lots to get a lot of lots. They're actually putting a lot of infrastructure in to create a walkable, pedestrian, dense neighborhood. It is dense. It is different than what we have, but it's different than a lot of the stuff that's been proposed with small lots. So I think there's an appropriateness here that should be considered. Whether that is the look and what the town wants, that's up to you all. But I think the lot size is an appropriate reaction, in my view, to the type of development that they're proposing, and they are going all in with the concept, okay? If that makes sense. Again, strong architecture, strong street design, short blocks. They are proposing street trees, which HOA will maintain, which does a lot for the character of the street, and parking in the back, and some excess parking elsewhere. Minimum side yards are consistent with what has been proposed elsewhere in town, which is 5 feet. East River, Marin Woods, and Harvest Run were all approved with that 5-foot setback, so that's 10 feet between buildings. They are proposing a building height of 60, which is almost double the town standard of 35. However, the additional height, again, is consistent with a real urban character, and I'll let the developer discuss his concept for height and why he's chose that number. And he has said in previous developments he doesn't think they're going to reach that height, but they could with some features. And I have the attached single-family standards here on the right, with a variety of setbacks for front and rear loaded and some other dimensions. So they proposed architectural standards for each type of unit, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but one is the garage doors being 25 feet back from the right-of-way when it's front-loaded. They're proposing exterior materials, entrance features, and individualized homes with unique features and color throughout. They're on the fronts, on the streets facing the public right-of-way, they're proposing EIFS, hardy board, and other high-quality materials as opposed to, vinyl and some of the other materials we typically get. So they're trying to create the front face as being really above and beyond to create more of an architectural feeling on the street. They transition to potentially other materials as you move back into the rears, but the front will have this higher quality material that the town has been requesting a lot of developers to consider. Porch features. There's a lot here about creating unique character on the architecture.
Mr. Winston?
And yes.
So is that, they're proposing only one side of high quality?
I'm sorry?
They're proposing only one side of the high quality frontages or surfaces?
Yeah, they're not promising to do the sides and rears in the same level of material. but certainly the front facades will have the higher quality materials.
Okay.
Similar with the single-family rear loaded, just slightly different. And then the non-residential, they're looking again, reduced setbacks. They were talking about 14-foot wide, 14-foot setback for buildings. That is essentially the width of our street yard. And so there's some considerations there in terms of how that would work with code. They would have to propose some sort of hybrid, where foundation shrubs and street yard would be a little more dense and combined to create to meet all the requirements. They're proposing a building height of up to 72 feet in that non-commercial zone. And I look at it in terms of this way: we allow the height along I-95, and similarly in this development, I think it makes sense where we could allow a similar height along the other highway on this side of town, kind of for the same reason, so they can have visibility from the highway. Again, 50-foot setbacks from Durwood Stevenson. With the reduced setbacks, we definitely want to make sure that they meet all the site view triangles, because when buildings get brought up tight, sometimes that can restrict views. So there's a condition of approval that addresses that. And the UDO requires a corner side yard equal to the front yard. Staff has no objection to a reduced corner side yard setback if the intersection meets the visibility standards. So I've got the local 70 development standards on the right and just comparing it to your typical B3 standards in this exhibit. And then the residential townhouses, lot widths are really similar. The smallest ones are really similar to East River, 6 and 7. And there's an image here to the right, that's an 18-foot wide unit. And staff has an issue with that when they're front-loaded on a street, but if they're rear-loaded alley access or with a parking lot, they tend to work all right. Like as with East River, they're on a parking lot. The minimum corner side yard, 10 feet, is proposed, again, because the front and side would be the same, reduced, it's okay, as long as the site visibility triangle is met. And we have an increased separation of buildings to 20 feet wide. So no buildings will be, no block of units will be any tighter than 20 to the next. So they'll always be separated 20 feet from the next block of townhouses. Any questions on these? So with the townhouses, no block of buildings greater than 7 units. Single or double car garages. Garages, if they're front loaded, will be 25 feet back from the public right-of-way. Units to be unique throughout with exterior materials, entrance features, house and trim colors. Front facades will stagger. You won't see a flat face along the street. You'll see homes with some articulation to and from the street. Again, the front facades will be of higher standard materials. Garage doors will have windows and visible hardware, and porches, if they exist, will be 4 to 6 foot in depth. And then the rear loaded, slightly different because you got a little bit different character. This is just really, again, talking about staff's recommendation that we approve the higher heights along US 70 bypass, kind of for the same reasons we allow it out by the highway. It's isolated, it has highway access and visibility. It makes sense to have some height out there. And then the multifamily, and this is the part that Carolina Commercial will be physically building themselves. The multifamily buildings facing the public right-of-way will have a minimum of 14 feet from the public sidewalk. The multifamily buildings with ground floor storefronts and other uses will be placed a minimum of 14 feet from a public sidewalk. We'll have similar high-quality materials. Rears could have vinyl or other materials. Architecture and building design will promote a consistent language across each building, and they'll take care to place windows, balconies, entryways in an organized fashion. Just talking about architectural features on the buildings. Okay? So this is a summary of the deviations, where they're not meeting traditional code. Obviously, the street design standards, the right-of-way width is 50s and 56s as opposed to 60. Minimum setbacks for non-residential. They're going to adhere to the 50-foot from the arterial, but the front setback for commercial will go from 35 down to 14, with potentially 0 setback on the side and rear, and corner side, they're proposing 0. Again, having to meet the site view triangle. Going from a non-residential building height from 40 up to 72. For single-family detached, instead of your typical 8,000 square foot lot, they're proposing a minimum of 42 square hundred feet. Minimum lot width from 70 down to 40. And rear loaded is 40, front loaded minimum is 42. And instead of a 30-foot front setback, they're proposing 10 if rear loaded, 25 if front loaded. Rear setback of 15 versus 25, and a side yard setback of 5 versus 10. Corner sides, again, obviously 10 to match the front. And then they have a garage from alley setback. Building height, set of 35, which is the max in the R8 district. They're proposing 60. And the townhouses, similarly, they got 4,500 square foot gross is the standard. That's usually gross over the whole development. Their individual lots will be 1,890 square feet. Again, that's kind of a hard comparison because they've got a lot of open space allocated between both townhouses, single family, and the apartments, so it seems an appropriate amount of open space. Minimum lot width, 18. Again, they're also proposing larger widths. Similar setbacks to the single family. And then the multifamily, the standards are here. And one thing to take note is the separation between buildings. They've got a slightly different proposal here, but staff has no issue with it. And for the multifamily, instead of 40, they're proposing 68s. What we're getting in exchange for all these deviations, one is really just I think a comprehensively designed neighborhood. I think it's well thought out and composed, but that's my opinion. That's up to you guys. Architectural guidelines with higher quality materials. Got street trees in the right-of-way, which does really create a street, a good character of the street, maintained by the HOA. Sidewalks on both sides. The Central Park feature, really a open space feature that unites the whole plan. Shorter residential blocks, which again, developers don't like doing that because it costs a lot of money, but they're doing it. And some rear-loaded residential units, at least a third of the residential units will be rear-loaded, which again, creates a much better street. And so some of the questions, these are the same questions I asked the planning board, just kind of framing the whole issue. Given the town standards for a 60-foot wide public right, is it appropriate to permit 50 and 56-foot wide rights-of-way, given all that they're proposing? Are the proposed building heights appropriate for the area? Are the reduced setbacks appropriate? Are the lot size and lot widths appropriate for the development? I didn't really get into the parking, but there are some auxiliary parking areas scattered throughout the development and on-street parking. I didn't really emphasize that a whole lot. You'll definitely get another take at that if and when this develops. But has there been adequate parking and is it addressed appropriately? Is this a proper balance of give and take? Is it appropriate to have HOA maintain street trees? Because we currently don't allow street trees anywhere else in town. should there be buffers or any other changes for lot sizes? And are there any other conditions needed for approval? Staff is finding this development consistent with the comp plan. The property will be developed in conformance with the UDO conditional zoning provisions that allow good faith negotiation of development standards, which we're doing tonight. And the property considered for rezoning will be compatible with the surrounding land uses with additional conditions of approval. And again, I talked about how a transition from intense to less intense as it gets down to the single family. So there is some thought about compatibility with surrounding land uses. Planning staff and the planning board recommend approval of the rezoning CZ 2401 with the following conditions. There was an additional condition that they pave Bay Hill Drive. Staff did not recommend that condition because I think that's kind of arbitrary. I don't think they're not planning on using it. Yes, there'll be access to Bay Hill Drive, but it's not a through street. I mean, it's not a main street. It's just a connection to a small residential street. Some residents will use it, but some of Bay Hill folks may want to go the other way and use their streets. So it's really not, I don't see it as an impactful connection. So I'll go through the conditions one by one. So obviously the first condition is just kind of, we'll attach a summary of all the deviations in that first condition, just to reiterate them. Residential lots with front setbacks less than 25 feet will be required. Residential lots with front setbacks less than 25 will provide for alley access in the rear. So you can't, if you have front-loaded street setbacks, you need a larger setback. In the non-residential areas with 14-foot setback, hybrid street yard that incorporates foundation shrubs shall be required. Again, they're compressing our residential landscape code for foundations and pushing it into the street yard with a reduced setback. So they have to really come up with a kind of a hybrid street yard that addresses foundation shrubs and street yard requirements. Non-residential development shall have parking on the side and rear of the principal structure if the building is set back less than 50 feet from the public right-of-way or the public property line. That being, if you bring the building forward, you're going to have the parking in the rear and side. Just stating here that we need a 50-foot setback along Durwood Stevens Parkway and 30 feet along Bocaderry Road. Townhouses less than 20 foot wide will have vehicular access from the rear by alley or fronting on a parking lot, addressing those really narrow townhouses. The development shall comply with the town street intersection site visibility requirements. Again, when houses are brought up to the street in near corners, that can cause visibility issues on the corner, so we want to make sure that regardless of the setbacks, that site triangle will take precedent, making sure that you can see when you get up to an intersection. And that all street trees in the public right-of-way shall be maintained and replaced when needed by a homeowners association. Something that they're proposing, and we just want to make sure it's conditionalized. And with that, I'm open for questions, and I've got a recommended motion here.
Tim? Thanks, Stephen. Any questions for staff?
Well, first of all, I have a question about your recommendation number 9. Setback dimensions to be from the property line rather than
Right.
the sidewalk or
There,
edge of road.
if you read through his architectural standards, he talks a lot about from the public sidewalk. Our code doesn't address public sidewalk. It takes measurements from the property line. I'm just saying, when he comes back with a real development, I want setbacks from the property line. Because we don't know in the real world where that sidewalk is. It may not get built where he says he's going to build it, but we know where the property lines are. So setbacks need to be from property lines. So it's just a communication between the creative mind and code, making sure that we get it codified in the future from property lines. Okay?
Mayor, I have a few comments. Mr. Williams, thank you for the presentation. I struggle with those, why do we even have a UDO if we're not going to follow the recommended, for specifically the single-family residential home lot size? It just doesn't make sense to me. And when you connect it to, for example, Bay Hill Drive, that's totally not reasonable and unfair. There needs to be something considered to make that better. And the other concern I have is the traffic. Where's this traffic going to go? And the water. But you've addressed some of that, but it's just, you mentioned it's an urban walking area, and that's fantastic, but everybody in this part of the country has cars. Where are they going to put the cars? And the parking doesn't seem to be adequate.
Yeah, if I may, there are, I didn't get into it in the presentation. I could go back to that, and I will. If I can find it, I think it's here. So, again, there's parking either in the alleys or on the street. There's potentially some parking up here on the northwest of the development. In the center of these townhomes, there's kind of a courtyard of parking lot. And then mostly on-street parking. There's going to be parking just kind of scattered around a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there's some issues with parking, but they'll have to address the code requirements for parking for sure. I mean, it's hard at this level to
Steve, could you go
identify exactly what they're
go over there
doing.
and point out the parking? Because we can't see what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some
I mean, if you did it
parking
on-
feature up on that very northwest corner by the townhouses, and there's sort of a center courtyard.
At the screen.
Yeah. So some parking in here, some parking in here. There's some open space here that may be able to accommodate some parking. And of course, a lot of alley parking. There'll be parking from the rear in the parking lots and driveways. But I'll let the developer address that. This is not as detailed out as a subdivision like you would typically see. They got pretty close, but that is one of the areas where it's not, I mean, I don't see driveways. I don't know exactly where the driveways are going to be. We don't have that level of detail at this zoning stage, but I'll let you raise that issue. I did want to talk about, I mean, the conditional zoning does allow flexibility. And the council members' comments about, why don't we follow the UDO? This is a feature of the UDO to allow flexibility. I think the greater issue is if we're going to allow flexibility, what do we want in exchange? Is it fair to have these lot sizes, and are we getting something that we want in return? If we're not, that's the discussion, because the flexibility is built into the code. And that's not, to me, that's not the issue. The issue is, what are we getting in exchange for the flexibility? Are you comfortable with what we're getting? Shorter blocks, street trees, a higher level of architectural materials, a cohesive concept with open space kind of focused throughout the center of it, those sort of things. Does that make sense in exchange for your concerns? And I'm not discounting your concerns at all. I'm just saying that this developer is put forth a concept that I think is cohesive. It maybe still has work to do in some areas, maybe parking, but conceptually, is a small lot size development with these features makes sense, and the code allows it if you allow it, if you're happy with the exchange of features.
Building upon that, in your describing some of the architectural standards, I want to be shown, and then I want it to be built. I don't want to be shown, and then it not be built, like it's happened. It does happen. So, I mean, I understand the concept. I mean, I get this is where we're headed, everywhere. I think this, I mean, conceptually, I mean, I like this plan, but the architectural standards, and you're describing that, you say, well, this may be their architectural standard, this may be their, so how do we get that in writing? And is this the stage, or is the next place the stage for that? So that's my biggest concern, is to be shown quality homes, and then those homes actually come to fruition. And that's where the give and take, these other concerns are valid.
Yeah.
But my main is that, we have high-quality homes in a high-quality neighborhood.
I think the may is, they're not promising high-quality features on the sides and rears.
Okay.
You know, it may be vinyl, but on the fronts, it's going to be the high-quality materials. The other features are baked into the architectural code, which we will follow throughout the development as it goes into subdivision and everything else, unless there are other details you want in the architectural standards.
So this architectural standards, like page 24, 25, that is the code that they're going to follow?
That's the code that they're planning to build to.
On that, you mentioned architectural standards, so high quality along the front or public-facing roads. Does that include, I guess the homes on Booker Day are facing the front?
Some,
but the ones that are not, and then corner lots. To me, the corner lot should definitely have that look too, because that's going to be a public road.
we can let
I
the
mean, that
developer
just-
address that, and we can conditionalize it if we need to.
I mean, some of the setbacks, you know, I know we have a hard time stomaching that, but there's not many 35-year-olds out there who want to do yard work. I think I'm one of the last of them. And as I put out Pine Straw this afternoon, I was thinking about that all day. My neighbor saw me. So, I get this is not what a lot of us might not neighborhood want to live in, but, you know, people coming here, these small lots with nice, high-quality homes, that is the give and take that I'm comfortable with. So,
So Stephen, I have some questions about several things that might be easier if the developer answers those, perhaps.
Jody, do you want to come up?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. My name is Jody Lightoff, and I represent Smithfield Growth LLC. Glad to answer all questions, and I want to thank Stephen for the presentation. It's a lot to digest and present to you, and he's done a fabulous job tonight with the complexity of this.
I had a question about the building heights.
Yes.
Among other things, but our normal is 40 and you're proposing 70 for the standalone houses. I mean, 72 feet, that's, I know you said maybe there were some features that you needed that leeway in, but I'm just wondering.
Right. We have several standards. One is 60 foot for the single family, and then we bump up to, I believe it was 68 for the multifamily and 72 for the commercial. The ideal being that I don't believe building height, traditionally, we know what home builders are going to build. It's generally a 2.5-story home, you know, roof peaks, pitches, dormers, et cetera. If it's on a stoop, I set out, and it's me, and we're glad to code this and make a condition, and we can drop that building height. But to me, building height really just doesn't matter in a community like this because of the typical product type. And then I just don't want to be in a contiguous or a confrontational situation where, you know, somebody starts to measure from, you know, stoop or to the peak of the roof, or was it midpoint of the roof? And to me, architectural expression should win out in this kind of environment. If we want to bring it back down to 48 feet, we're more than happy to condition that tonight.
Okay, just, I mean, it
it's
wasn't
just-
even close. It was
Yeah,
35
it's
to
just building in
60
that
and-
flexibility for architectural expression and making good streets and good houses.
And the other question is the lot size. I know the minimum lot size you said was 42, but there will be bigger ones.
If it's rear-loaded, it can go down to 40 feet. So the minimum lot size is 4,200 square feet, which is 40 by 105. Our typical blocks are 115. So if you read the plan as it is written verbatim today, we don't have a 4,200-foot lot. We have a slightly larger lot because of the lot depth. 42 is where you can start to get in to introduce a front-load garage condition. And that gives you a wide enough house to get the two-car garage, and that home would be set back 25 feet from the right-of-way and not the sidewalk. And that whole situation, when I was writing the design code, I really wanted to make sure that the tail of the car, when it's parked in front of the garage door, does not extend over the sidewalk. And so it was my terminology that Stevens has corrected me on and staff has corrected me on. So
You
that's-
mentioned
hence the right-of-way.
You mentioned the parking too. I was going to ask, in some of the diagrams you had, on the rear load lots, you had some detached garage that had a 25-foot setback.
And then,
Meant people could park in the garage and have a driveway to
Right.
park in. And the other one was a 4-foot.
so again, what I want to prevent is somebody in the alley parking askew or coming in a diagonal and blocking the alley. So either put the garage close enough to where you can't have that condition, or move it away from the alley to where you can have a full car stacking. So it's really trying to code how people use the alley and use that threshold. So if it was 8 feet, they might pull in crooked and the back of the car may be sticking out. So it's either one or the other. I don't want a car sticking out into the alley.
Okay, so these people that have the 4-foot setback on the
Right.
detached garage, they don't have a driveway in the front to park in. So if they have storage in their garage, and where do they park their cars? There's no other place for them to park except for these auxiliary lots, I
That
guess.
and the on-street parking that we're trying to code in to have one lane of parallel parking in the street.
On one side of the
Yes,
street.
yeah.
And who will enforce that?
It doesn't get enforced, it's first come, first serve.
I mean, but to keep people from parking on both sides of the street.
They be lined, they be marked.
Yeah, we'll definitely paint out the parking. I mean, it's, downtown Smithfield, you have that. I think Second Street, when it's one way going towards, it's going east, right before Market Street, it's one way with parking on one side that's marked.
But it'll be marked with a sign or something?
Yes, we can do that.
Now, who maintains those roads and alleys?
They will be the alleys will be private roads, and that will be coded within the HOA for fixing them, repairing them. And then all the roads will be Town of Smithfield, NCDOT, built to your standards and turned over to the town.
I guess back to Councilman Dunn's comment on the parking, you can paint spaces all you want. What's going to prevent them parking on the other side?
Yeah.
Because that's going to probably pose a safety issue.
Well,
That's what he was asking, who's going to maintain to make sure they don't park both sides? I believe, is that what you're asking?
That was part of it.
HOA, I assume, has the responsibility.
Right, HOA.
For, HOA controls that.
And we will have an
Public
HOA
street
for the
you can turn
community.
No, okay, it's not the public street, we're talking about alleys, the public street's our stuff.
Right.
But
But
the police
HOA
department-
can code that and monitor the parking, et cetera.
They can, even though it's a public street, it's in their community, the HOA still can have responsibility for it.
Okay.
So as long as it's in their HOA requirements, when they write it up that way, that you're required not to do, if you do violate, the HOA charges you a penalty, we don't do it, we ain't, Yes, sir.
We have that in my neighborhood, but I can tell there's a lot of on-street parking, even though the HOA says you can't do it. Because it's a public street, so
Well, that's
it's a hard thing to
what I'm saying.
enforce.
Would that restrict the fire engine going down? I'm just using that as a devil's advocate here. Tell me how that would be, because I've seen where in other towns, we've had something similar to this. And you couldn't even get a car, let alone, I mean, you could get a car, but it was pretty tight. You couldn't get two vehicles, let alone a fire engine down there.
Yeah, and that's the 33 feet, so, 8 foot wide, 16 leaves room for the fire truck to go through, even in the worst-case scenario. And, the inverse of all that is it calms traffic when you have parking on the street and people slow down, and it's a safer pedestrian environment. So it's which side of the argument do you want to look at? And I look at, slowing traffic down, calming traffic down. There's some intentionality into our roadway framework to make sure that cut-through traffic doesn't happen in the the true residential sections.
Where are they gonna go?
That's a good question.
We're talking about the parking. What about the trash can facilities, and where do you propose that?
Trash cans typically, and we can write that into an architectural design code. Typically, they would be stored in the garage or out of view. A lot of communities will code places next to the garage, but they have to be screened, and we're happy to include that into a design code as well. And I will, just in reference to the design code in your packet tonight, page 103 to 108 is the full design code. Stephen did, and staff did a wonderful job of excerpting the kind of key points. And I want to reinforce that the materials that we're suggesting we defined it as a public frontage. So whether it's open space, streets, pathways, green space, anything that the public can see has to be the upgraded material. So a side of a house, if it's on the corner, has to be two sides of the upgraded material.
In this, you list some places, I guess it wasn't in Stephen's report, but in our packet, list some places you have done
Yes.
in the past. Is it to the scale and size?
Yes, so Powell Place is 538 units, and Carolina Commercial built the multifamily within Powell Place, and that's development started in 2007, and we're still involved in that project today.
That's in Pittsburgh?
Yes. And I think I've shown the Medley Apartments, which Carolina Commercial has recently built in Pittsburgh as well. Just opened up and is leasing well. And I will stress that we will be the master developer for this project. So we will have the design code. We will enforce the design code. We will be selecting the builders, teams, and other commercial developers that want to build within our development. So we will be the master developer, and we will be building the infrastructure, the streets, the sidewalks, the street trees. And we are planning to build and own and operate the multifamily as far as we know it right now, so we'll be truly invested in the project, and the multifamily is in the middle of the project. So it's got the key location that, we really saw that.
So, there's going to be pretty much three entrances to this subdivision. One will be off Durwood Stevenson, and two will come on to Bookadary Road.
You have one on Bookadary Road, one on Bay Hill, and then you've got three connections proposed to M. Durwood Stevenson property.
Okay, I was counting the one from
Yeah.
the other subdivision back, because it comes back in, but.
And I haven't lived the Bay Hill Drive, and I haven't seen it flood. And right now, it's wooded, so it's hard to get back there. But within that context, our stormwater management pond is right there. If we need to lose that first lot in order to get the easement or feed a pipe in and make that, or we can adjust lots along that street, we can get that easement in to make sure the water gets into that stormwater management pond.
So the reason I was asking about the driveways, anybody that comes out onto Durwood Stevenson's going to have to take a right, comes from the apartment complex or townhomes, either one.
And then do, the wonderful super street that NCDOT loves.
Yeah,
Come
so
down, take a U-turn.
People probably will come out, so they don't have to circle all the way down to Walmart and come back. We'll go out onto Bookadary through either Bay Hill or the other road. So I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of traffic study done.
Yes, we already have a traffic engineer engaged, and we are working with NCDOT at this moment to determine all those turning movements on M. Durwood Stephen Parkway. and get all the traffic flow. So we keep feeding them, our most current unit mix so that they can put it into their traffic study.
But an actual traffic study will be required when this project moves forward at the next stage.
Where do you see, I hate no silver ball, crystal ball here. Do you see a stoplight going there? Do you see a roundabout to ease that traffic on Buffalo, on Bookadary?
I do see us.
No, on Bookadary.
I can't speak for NCDOT.
I know.
I would love,
I know.
if you look to the north side of the project into the commercial area, we've been asked by staff to provide interparcel connectivity to future development.
Right.
And that's a pretty big road and a big, if you think about the commercial that occurs on the north side with a multifamily on the south side, logic would say, we would love to have a stoplight. If you look at M. Durwood Stevenson Parkway, there's already stoplights. Bookadary Road is a stoplight.
Yeah.
It's not like the cadence and the speed of that road has already been tamed by the time you get down to North Brightleaf, right? To me, it's very logical and the safer for pedestrians and everybody involved to put a stoplight in.
On Durwood.
Yes.
But Bookadary is where I've had some calls on today, even, that the existing residents seem more concerned. That's the one they use every day.
Yeah, Bookadary is, and I think
He lives there.
we tried our best to really think through the frontage on Bookadary Road. Bookadary Road is 4,312 feet long. It's not even a mile long, right?
Right.
And it's got a very mix of residential, commercial, and different types of commercial types, flex office, condo office, et cetera. And so we really wanted to think through that and present the community and make sure that our community felt like the rest of Smithfield, hence the frontage and getting the alleys and getting that streetscape right for it. And so we wanted to be additive to that experience on Bookadary, and I do realize that traffic patterns, it also gives everybody, coming up Bookadary, an easy right through our community to get to M. Durwood and get options. And, the connection to Bay Hill was a request, I believe, by the fire marshal, if I'm not right, Corey. And I think that interparcel connectivity and that fabric, it's reflective of what is occurring in, the heart and the true portion of Smithfield. And that's the ability to give people options to get through the community. And it, just serves everybody well.
Any other questions for staff or for the developer?
We haven't talked much about the stormwater.
Stormwater, we took, in our attitude towards stormwater is to really make it a feature of the community. And that gets into that 30% open space within the whole of the community, and that trade-off of density versus open space and providing that walkability and recreation and trails and infinity. So we've greatly enlarged the stormwater management ponds to be a focal point of the community. If you can see, it extends from M. Durwood Stevenson along the kind of backside of Walmart all the way into the community. And then we provided that kind of active park node on the other side of the street. So really choreographing the open space so it's meaningful, but also allowing for enough stormwater management. And, we, as developers, we may want some of that dirt out of those big ponds to help reshape and get finished floor plans up high enough to where we don't have the drainage problems and we can help deal with the Bay Hill situations. Redirect that water back through our community into our ponds.
So I guess my question is, are these, so these just stormwater, they're just containers, do they go somewhere? Or are they, you have some type of what,
Yeah, if you-
agitator or
most
something
of-
there?
most
Or
of-
you have like, I could see over time, you have a pond of algae.
Well, I think, typically, and there's, again, in that design code, you'll see a pond and Powell Place that we've done. I think it's very, emulates what our vision is for this one. But we will probably have fountains. You've got to move that water, you got to aerate it, and you've got to keep it moving in order not to have algae. So fountains, we're happy to put in and probably be a feature. It's always nice to look across and hear water move. Most of the project drains to the far right, and that's where the stormwater release will go into that system. Far southeast corner, southeast corner.
Didn't we, correct me, help me remember, because my mind's, older I get, the less I can remember things. Correct me if, did not East River have a pond and, that we had a concern about, and we required them to put something aside in case the HOA went out of business and we stuck us with the pond? Did we not do that? Because, okay,
That pond actually went away with the redesign,
all right.
so it became less of an issue. But we do.
We did, though. did
But we
not?
do, under our new stormwater ordinances, do have a provision for HOAs putting together like an escrow account for maintenance. It's baked into the new stormwater ordinance. So,
Okay.
and that
I
was,
know we were really concerned about that many years ago, that, we didn't want to get stuck with, because there are subdivisions that had HOAs, don't have HOAs anymore. Everything goes, and then anything happens, who's going to fix it?
that's right.
So that's always been a concern.
I'd like to just recapture a couple of the themes that, we tried to address. Number one was the transition from the existing zoning to the comprehensive plan, right? And B3 extended across some of the existing residential, and with the comprehensive plan, it moved it back. And so we really were trying to be reflective of that. And so as you move from the north to the south, that's where we put all the largest lots. So really, that theme of trying to follow those two documents as a guiding kind of employment node, tax base, and create a nice residential fabric altogether, and really took to heart the idea of a mixed-use community and what that means, and promoting that, a little bit of that smart growth. Infrastructure's already in place, water and sewer is already there, and Durwood-Stevenson Parkway is already, if there was one logical infill location where density made sense, the police force, fire, all of that is already serving this area. We're not extending it out 5 miles. We're not doing the typical suburban growth pattern. We're trying to, build into a community that is really reflective of what the fabric of Smithfield's all about, and that kind of intentional grid pattern, connectivity, so forth. So that was the key theme. The crafting of community, we purchased this land 4 years ago. We've been very intentional in thinking through this. We've tried to work with staff and the town, creating this vision. And actually, the planning board was a tremendous guidance. We actually lowered the density by 200 units after going through the planning board. We adjusted the lot size. The planning board was really wonderful in a give and take and discussion about what community should be. And then just back to that kind of connected fabric of the roads. And then when the dust settles, our lot types, we've kind of listed out the minimum and given the coding. Once we get through the fire marshal, the traffic turning radius, the fire trucks, the final engineering, stormwater, the need for easements, that density is probably going to come down even more. So, I think we've really tried to work with the town and really bring it something that we could all be proud of and make sense in today's kind of ideal of growth and land use and what is appropriate and where is density appropriate and how do we address neighbors and existing streets.
One thing I'd like us to consider to kind of guarantee this architectural design is maybe consider part of conditioning to be no vinyl siding. Is that, I don't know if that's palatable to y'all?
Yes.
Okay.
We've actually, it's,
I mean,
there's been tremendous interest from home builders
Okay.
in the idea of this plan and what is transpiring. And we told them, look, it's going to be hardy plank. And, it's harder to have to mix of vinyl and hardy.
Yeah.
You're either going to
Right.
do one or the other.
Right, right.
And we know what that cost is per house, and it's something that people are willing to commit to be a part of.
And I think that would help ensure the type of builder
Yeah,
that y'all
we can,
get
we'll
to.
condition that and
I would-
say
you know,
no vinyl on single-family or townhomes.
Sounds good to me.
I think it would be more consistent to do that.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
The aesthetic view would be
Yeah.
better,
We're happy to do that.
well taken.
Thank you.
So one of our concerns is, and you've heard it tonight, and I think we may have tried to conditionalize it with number one, I guess, maybe, but obviously, we're really trying to have a great product, right, without having our own architectural standards in place. So I commend you for putting forth the effort to go through the plan like you have. Our concern is as though that we work together, right, on, you know, for a while now, on various projects and so forth, but who knows what may happen tomorrow. So our concern is how do we make sure that whatever we're talking about today, and I've heard Councilman Stevens, I think that what you were referring to,
Yeah.
carries over, should you sell this development to someone where, God forbid, go out of business or file bankruptcy or whatever? How do we ensure that the same standards that we're talking about tonight, we make sure that whoever develops this is exactly what we're talking about? How do we do that?
Well, what we do is, obviously, when they come forward with their preliminary plans, we review it again for consistency. And then when they produce their plot plans for permit approval, Chloe has all the conditions of approval, and if there's images that were from the presentation, she'll have copies of those to say, does it have similar features? Does it meet those standards? And that's what we do. She's got little lists of which ones are conditional zonings, which ones require impervious review, because infill lots don't. She's got a lot of different layers of things to review, and so it's done at that level.
So,
And we drive through the developments also to make sure that, you know, I've called up and said,
Sure, and so I live in a subdivision with HOA, and we do not allow on-street parking, though, yes, there is sometimes on-street parking, but it's very limited in my neighborhood. But you know, my concern always is parking and being able to get through. And though I like the design of this, I think this could be marketed as almost a, you know, kind of like, you know, a different district, if you will, for Smithfield. But in your opinion, the off-street parking,
I think, in my opinion, is when they come in for preliminary plat, we're going to have to address it further then.
yeah, because I
It's
kind of
hard-
heard
it's
that
hard
parking
to
could be an
gauge.
issue, right? And I've even heard maybe you,
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your
Yeah,
mouth, but.
but it's
I
hard
just-
to gauge at this scale.
Sure, okay. But it will be addressed, I guess, is.
Yeah, you'll get another stab at it.
Okay, we will. Okay, all right.
And Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, the zoning will run with the property, right? So if something
Right.
happens, the design code, the conditions of this approval stay with the land, not with the developer. And
Right.
so if they want to change that,
They got to come back.
Right. And again, in developing this community, it's incumbent upon us to make sure the community works, that parking works, that trash works, all that. So you know, as we get into further design, and really, the fire marshal's going to have more control over some of our design than, you know, how they move through and serve and protect the residents. That's when we'll get into the nuts and bolts and make sure that we have adequate parking. You know, I've seen neighborhoods similar to this where they've left out one or two lots and had to come back in and put in visitor parking, right? Because somebody has a dinner party and you're like, where do we park? Or, you know,
Right.
your parents come in and.
And that's what we want to make sure
Right.
that we have.
We are very sensitive to that, and that
adequate.
goes to the viability of the community.
So how many of the lots have two-car spaces and how many have
All the lots will have,
Or with the stack?
well, to be technical, every lot will have 2 cars
Yeah, that's
in
right.
the garage, right? And so it's,
Nobody will have a car in the garage.
Yeah.
Nobody puts a car in the garage. Go ahead.
guilty. But I live in an alley load, and I have, 2-car garage, and
Yeah, you got a two-car maybe.
yeah, so everybody will have 2-car spaces based upon the garage, and then the front loads will have stacking, and the townhomes may have stacking. Yeah, it's just depending on where that selection is for the garage location.
When you say stacking, that means in the driveway too?
Yes, yeah. Typically, like if you pull home and you don't want to pull in your garage, keep
So
the
you
garage
have
door,
2.
that's stacking, right.
Yeah, so up to 4 and 2 in the garage.
Right. Now, I will say, one of the twists is the townhome. If it went to an 18-foot townhome and the builder decided to only put a 1-car garage in but have a space in front, that's the only caveat to that.
And the garages, the alley garages with the 4-foot setback, they'd only have the 2-car garage.
They have a 2-car garage with a 4-foot setback. It's, and again, it's builder choice and, again, what is preferable to a home buyer, and it's generally to have the stacking space, so they may move the garage away from the alley in order to have that stacking. But we just wanted to make sure there was no, again, it goes to the governance of community, that when people pull into the alley, that they pull either into their garage or all the way into the stacking space and don't try to parallel park and block traffic.
How wide is a 2-car garage? 60 feet
Typically,
or
a
more?
2-car garage is 18 feet from edge to edge, and then you get 2 or 3 feet on either side for additional storage. Sometimes it's 16 feet, it gets really tight, so it's again, in this day and age, we will we hope to impress upon our builder team that garages are important. That's kind of one of the key features of your house, and not to have too skinny of a garage and have room for storage and bikes and all that. But again, in summation, we are more than happy to condition no vinyl on single-family and townhomes. And in the design code, we've written the multifamily, no vinyl is allowed on the first floor, because it's kind of that touch, what you can touch and feel. We do have vinyl on the second and third stories. But, again, it's so far up, you don't notice that as much.
Is that consistent with other projects that
Yes.
you've developed?
And again, you've got examples within that design code of what Carolina Commercial has built. And so that's the main one we will condition, and we'll work inherently on stormwater management and try to do our best for Bay Hill Drive.
Any other questions?
Mayor, I have a question for the attorney. And not trying to pick on anybody or any project, but we've seen projects come on a smaller scale similar to this and be promised the design standard, and the project is sold, and then you get less of a design. My question is there a ability for us, and he said he didn't have a problem with it, make a master developed design code be revocable if this project is put on the market or sold?
No.
Well, can you give us any advice on what we can do to prevent?
When you got a violation, you can enforce it by penalties and fines. And you can get a restraining order if necessary to stop the violation.
Was that is after the house was built?
That's to prevent whatever violation you've got. You understand? And obviously, you build houses in violation of the code, and you risk having to remove part of the house.
Stephen touched on this while you're out briefly.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's just the Constitution does not like restraints on what they call alienability or the ability to sell property.
Maybe Stephen reiterate what you said a few minutes ago.
Sorry, I had to step out.
I'm sorry, what did?
About the property.
He kind of asked the same question.
The question I asked.
The same question Andy asked. About that, if this
Making
is-
sure that the standards, if
So
should the property be
we've got
sold.
architectural standards here, and they're going to have to show the same thing at the preliminary plat stage, probably with even a little more detail. So again, consistency throughout the process. And at that time, you guys review the design code and make sure it goes in the HOA. It's a typical process. It'll be part of the HOA documents, and we can go back and make sure it's consistent with what you originally proposed and may get refined a little bit for the preliminary plat, make sure it's substantially consistent. And then when they come back with plot plans for Chloe to issue zoning permits, she has charts on her wall which developments are conditional zonings, and then she knows to check the conditions of approval, and the presentations have images and the documents that were approved. So she knows to go check those for consistency, and then once she's been working with the development, she knows what those standards are, and she follows through and makes sure there's consistency as she goes. That's the process we follow, and then even today, I drive through developments to make sure that things are going up as the plot plans showed. I had a concern that the Franklin garages were smaller than required, because they look smaller because they made the driveway so skinny. But they're the standard one-car garage, like they promised, like it was conditioned. It was a spot check. I had to call a developer, ask him what the dimensions were. He told me, and indeed, they were that.
So I guess in the situation on Second Street, which is all we always refer back to, that was a subdivision. So that was just a straight as-is zoned by right zoning subdivision.
That was an infill development.
Have architectural standards
Right.
for that.
That was an infill development, and we have no control over it because there's no HOA. There was no conditional approval.
Right.
Under statutes, we can't conditionalize architectural standards for single-family unless it's through a process like this where they're asking for something.
Right. So, I mean, and architectural standards is a totally different conversation if we wanted to look at that, but the conditions travel with the landowner. Okay.
I take that to mean a combination.
I do too, but
I think we could argue that easy. Because they've got it listed.
Right. And the discussion about the setbacks from either the sidewalk or the property line, I understand what you're saying, but what your recommendation is it would still provide enough parking so that you're not overhanging into the sidewalk.
Right.
Okay.
I just
I
want
want
to
to make sure of that as well, because that's,
Yeah, I just
obviously,
want
I
to codify
understand
it.
where they were coming from, is saying
Yeah.
the setbacks, because, from the sidewalk, right?
Yeah, I just need to codify
That
it.
is something I see very often.
Right.
In my neighborhood.
Understood.
Right.
I just need to codify it in a way that we can enforce it.
Right.
Because sidewalks, they can be built anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, they don't necessarily follow property lines.
Right. Any other questions, comments? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? Come forward, please. State your name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Mark Lane, and as most of you know, I'm chairman of the planning board here in Smithfield. As I was listening to the presentation tonight, I reckon it came to me that I thought there was 3 additional conditions the planning board had put onto this project that is not.
Yes, the 2 of them have been addressed
Okay.
in their resubmittal. The third one was the paving, which I did describe that I'm not in support of, and it's not in the conditions of approval.
Why?
Because I don't think it's a fair condition to have them repave a public street that they are not impacting through development. It's standard that we require connectivity to existing roads, and they're not doing anything different.
Right. Well, whether I agree or disagree, I mean, I voted no for the entire project. But I wanted to be sure, before I came in and put my foot in my mouth, that Bay Hill Drive was a condition. And I think it's my duty to tell you that members of the planning board, with the conditional zoning, they weren't satisfied with the give and take. So there was a couple members that were saying they will be using Bay Hill possibly to go back and forth, delivering supplies, big trucks or whatever. And that could be something that the town could take to even things out, because you're giving a lot and they're not giving back any more than any other developer. Like I say, I'm not saying I agree with paving Bay Hill Drive or repairing Bay Hill Drive. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. Like I say, I voted no for the entire project, but I just wanted you to know that that was a condition, and I don't understand why, if the planning board made it a condition, that it didn't come to you. If the planning board makes a condition, the condition needs to stay, and it should be up to the council to take the condition off.
And that is why I mentioned it to them, so they would know that it was a condition and that it's omitted on purpose because staff is not recommending it.
Right.
But I did let them know.
Okay.
And the other conditions were addressed through the redesign, and so there no longer needed to be conditions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pam Lampy at 415 North 2nd Street. I want to thank the developers at Local 70 for their investment in our community. I enjoyed meeting you at the planning board meeting and sharing our concerns. And thank you for listening. And also, thank you for much better buffers. It's perfect. I'm impressed with the quality of your products in other communities, especially in the Carolina Colors community in New Bern, North Carolina. I just hope that this project will be built to similar high architectural standards that they have. And on page 80 of tonight's agenda, our planning department asked the council to consider the 9 questions, so I hope that you guys do, and I'm sure you will. My main concerns are like all of yours: the lot size, the adequate parking, the traffic ingress and exits that are already crowded on Booker Dairy and Bay Hill Street, and the lack of the siding on all 4 sides, but I think Sloan's got that remedied, so thank you, Sloan. I still prefer the UDO prescribed minimum lot sizes for the single family of 8,000 square foot or 5 houses per acre in this community. We've got nice subdivisions of Eden Woods, Booker Dairy Plantation, and North Fall, who all have much bigger lots. So I'm hopeful that we can get some bigger lot sizes. 677 door fronts will be a lot of extra traffic. I hope the residents on Bay Hill have been informed about the potential increase in traffic. And my question is, does this street have to be connected? So that's one question I have. And usually with a door front, there comes 2 cars, so that's a lot of extra cars. And the garage sizes, I think the average garage size for a 2-car is 24 by 24. And a lot of people in our community drive big cars and big trucks. So I really don't know if the garages and the parking even addresses the size of cars, because Johnson County, we love our pickup trucks. And the lack of adequate parking for the 677 door fronts is also a problem to me, because no matter whether they're front-loaded or back-loaded, it's just going to be a mess. It's going to be crowded alleys everywhere, people parking everywhere, and it's just like it's going to be really difficult to maneuver, I think. And we owe it to the people who are going to be buying these properties to look out for them, I feel like. We don't want people to have these trouble with parking, and I don't think you do either. So we need to be thoughtful for that. Let's see, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Ms. Gimmel?
Good evening. I'm Emma Gimmel, 207 Hancock Street, and I wanted to thank y'all for the improvements that y'all did and the changes. I still have some concerns. One of my concerns to start with was Bay Hill. Why can't they close the street? You know, if they close the street, you know, there's going to be drainage issues, like the mayor said, because there will be so much runoff from the concrete and the pavement. They're not using impervious products, so it's just going to be concrete or pavement. So what are the people at Bay Hill getting? And the other thing was, what is the town getting? Like they were saying, the town is getting pavement that they're going to have to maintain and pave. They're going to have to stripe it, I guess, because they were saying that they were going to be striped. So I'm not sure. And then Mr. Stevens said that maybe we should have all the sides. That would be an improvement from what they were saying. So that would be something that the town would be getting. But the closing of Bay Hill would help Bay Hill, and it would also keep the traffic in, it's not going to help the traffic because it would help the traffic because they had that. But if they decided to take more houses instead of putting another road in there, because they need 2 roads coming out on Bookadary, and they only have 1. They're including Bay Hill as their other exit, which they're not having to do anything to maintain or do. So you're not getting anything for that. You're just having to pave the street anyway. So I just think you need to see, what are you getting? What is the Bay Hill group getting? They're not getting anything. They're getting a lot more traffic. They're going to get, you know, construction issues with all kinds of dirt and stuff. And right now, the road is not paved well at all. So I just think the developers could have 2 streets in there instead of 1 coming out on Bookadary. And that would decrease a lot of the people that would be having cars, because they would not be able to have quite as many homes in there if they put another street in there. And I think they chose streets, instead of a street, they chose houses, because it would be monetary more feasible for them. But there's a lot of traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the matter? Okay. Yes, ma'am. No, that's fine.
The extreme height, 72 feet, is that going to be a lot of light, extra light for those homes in that residential section? New lights? I'm not sure. That's just a question. I just think that you have to think about 72 feet and a lot of lights. They're going to have, you know, outside lights probably that are going to feel like searchlights to some of those homes. But anyway, I think that the road closing on Bay Hill would help.
It's going to be underground.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Sure.
I'll give my opinion about the Bay Hill. If the road's in bad repair, it's our fault. I don't think it's fair to ask somebody to come in and fix our problems. Bay Hill's on a list of 100 streets around here that need addressing, and I think that, and that's probably the low end. So, I mean, I get the ask, but I think we need, as a town, address that along with all our other streets, including, so, I don't know.
Mayor, on a different topic, you know, Bay Hill is a community that is one of the only communities I know of in this town that has a private pool, and it's a private road for those people that live there. I think with the buffer or whatever, I just don't know that that's adequate to provide the proper separation. Perhaps the HOA at Bay Hill needs to be, because it's an extension of the neighborhood. I hope that we would meet those standards.
So, we already have entrances off of Durwood Stevenson? Is that right? Or is that still in negotiations with DOT?
And this, for this development?
Yes.
I think they've preordained a few locations that they would allow.
Okay.
And none of them are full intersections. You know, they're what you see here.
But there's still entrance and exit out of the neighborhood.
Mhm.
Not full intersections, but entrances and exits out of the neighborhood.
Right.
So, two?
Well, DOT is aware of all they're proposing here. I don't think they have
But
official.
I guess my question is that a done deal? I mean,
I don't think it's a done deal, but I think DOT's negotiating with them, and they've already said no to some of their requests. And ultimately, they'll probably get a permit for these with conditions, with a traffic study.
okay, and then is there any requirement from our design specs that they have to have two on the Tabooka area?
Two on the Booker, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think a development like this, at a minimum.
I thought
would
what I
require-
heard you say is just we have a minimum of two.
Right.
They have a minimum of two, but it was a recommendation of the fire marshal to open it up through Bay Hill.
Well, it's connectivity. I can't speak for the fire marshal. I mean, Jeremy may know, I don't know. But obviously, we have connectivity standards also in our code. And two is the minimum for a multifamily development. We also have this whole connectivity diagram in the code that says you need to connect to adjacent properties. And they're doing that. Also, Bay Hill dead ends in a way that is difficult for a fire truck to turn around. There's no cul-de-sac there. It just stops dead. And so.
Where it is right now.
Yeah, and I know the fire marshal would like to remedy that, so if an apparatus has to go down there, they can get out of there. By continuing the street, they can get out of there. And it provides safety on both ends, having that connectivity. I mean, if you look at this diagram, I pulled it up just to show, you know, the street network and the grid and the short blocks. I mean, yes, you'll have some cars going south and then back over to Booker Road, but you'll just as well may have street cars from Booker going north if they want to go to Shrek. So it may be less traffic on Bay Hill in some cases, or a similar amount of traffic. And it's not going to be like a direct thoroughfare where everyone's going to take Bay Hill. And they're even proposing connectivity to potentially future development to the west, as required by code.
So technically, we could actually close Bay Hill to that.
It's already closed at the
I
moment.
mean, yeah, we wouldn't have to incorporate that. Is that what you're?
Well, I mean, I think the council has the leeway to do a lot of things, but I
Because we've
think
already got.
consistency with the code is this connectivity to existing street stubs, connectivity to undeveloped properties adjacent, and providing a minimum of 2 exits out, to main roads. They've got that and more.
Got that already.
Yeah.
There's no development right now for the area to connect the Bay Hill to that now, correct?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
There's no plans to connect this project with the Bay Hill area right now, is what you're saying.
Yeah, just this one singular connection onto Bay Hill Road on the south, next to the pond there. That's the sole connection to the south, as proposed.
And it would ease up those people on the south side near that connection to Bay Hill. If we did close that off, then they all got to go up and onto Eden, or enter Boca Dairy at Eden, where it would spread out the traffic. And since that bottom 25% of them are going to naturally use that Bay Hill, and then it'll allow people from Bay Hill, in my opinion, this development is going to bring us the Harris Teeter that I hear. Why don't y'all have a Harris Teeter? And to me, it's going to be on that north side. And to provide that connectivity, it may not be that, I'm just assuming, my opinion, but to keep that connectivity, and we fix our own streets, I don't know. That's my opinion.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
I did a quick check to let you know that the garage size of 14 by 22, just so I know inquisitive mind wanted to know, the standard size for a standard truck, okay, needs to have a minimum size of 12 by 20, a minimum truck. But so obviously 14 by 22 would be enough for a standard truck. Now, if you got a dually, well, that ain't gonna work, right? I mean, but standard pickup truck would fit in that garage. I know that was a question, but a standard, and there would be no room to open the doors. So, I mean, you could fit a truck in the drawer. So, and a lot of people do have trucks. I was saying it would be probably true of certain SUVs. I think also would be similar as a truck. So, just to say.
You can put 2 little cars in those double car garages and 1 truck.
Standard truck.
If y'all know that better than I do. You can't get 2 big cars in a double car garage unless it's big.
All right. Any other questions for staff? Anyone at this time? Not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor to close the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. What is have a motion from the council?
Speaking of the conditions, is now appropriate time to discuss those further?
Sure, absolutely.
He mentioned that, I wrote his name, I'm sorry, sir, I forgot your name, I wrote it down.
Jody.
Joey mentioned that he would be willing to accommodate dedicated space for the trash recycle facility for the town cans. That's a planned project we're gonna make work. I feel like, I don't know what condition that would be or how you'd want to do that, but I think that needs to be addressed. And also, with the front loading and lot loading, rear loading concept with the narrow lot sizes, I'm not in favor of. Perhaps it is important that we do ask that it be a condition that is documented that the striping on the streets is individually marked. I know that was mentioned.
The spaces on the street be striped?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
what you were saying? Okay.
And can we put no parking signs on the other side of the street?
Yeah, that was mentioned as well.
Yeah. So we stripe one side for parking, one side no parking.
Well, it might be simpler to, I don't, whatever the town requires, but you make it paint no parking. Instead of it being a street sign, it could be, they're planning to make a nice neighborhood, but these things are things that they won't be here to enforce.
Well, my understanding is they actually are planning on managing the apartments. So there will be still people in that, the people that, they're not just gonna hit and run, so they will be in there. So if there's an issue, I guess we could reach over to the apartments where they're at and say, hey, what are you doing in your neighborhood?
I didn't say anything about
I mean, am I not right? Am I not correct? Don't you go, you guys, somebody for your group will be managing the apartments, correct? So they don't just cut and run. That's important.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I've kind of written down a number of potential conditions. I just want to review things that I've heard, and you guys could tell me which are appropriate. So I just summarize this last one, that the HOA could limit parking to one side of the street where the roads are 33 feet wide. That they would stripe the stalls individually.
It could just be the Ts. I don't think it has to be a total stripe, whatever the standard is. Does that make sense? You know, where they put the corner indicators for parking. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
The
probably a
ticks.
standard.
The ticks.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
And then there's the condition of the higher level materials on all facades.
No vinyl.
Trash stored in garage or screened from public right-of-way.
Nobody stores their trash thing in the garage.
That the ponds have fountains to prevent algae growth.
Oh, unless I have to.
Did I hear that all single-family units will have two-car garages? Is that true? All single-family units will have two-car garages? Yes. So we can conditionalize that, and maybe 24, minimum 24 by 24, is that correct?
He said a different number.
I just want to make sure I know the number. Okay. Why don't I just say two-car garages? We can work that out later. And I was going to say no use of Bay Hill Drive for construction access, just to eliminate that concern as a condition of approval. And I don't know if there's any other ones, but that's what I've heard tonight.
Okay, so you had originally, the recommendation number 8 said residential garage shall be at least 14 by 22 to accommodate a single standard vehicle. So now you're saying you're changing it to 2 vehicles, 24 by 24.
But some of the townhouses may have one-car garages, so I'm saying all single-family units have a two-car in that.
And there is some variance in 2-car sizes.
And I don't want to put a size, I want them to figure out what size they want. I'm not sure what it is. I was suggesting 24 by 24, but I don't know what they're proposing.
I don't think our garage is 24 by 24.
It don't have to be, no.
But I mean, I don't think they're that deep. They're that wide.
There are different standards, and I don't want to quote a standard they don't want to build. But I do want it to be a full-size garage, a standard full-size garage. So maybe just calling a standard full-size garage.
Mr. Wins, what about the buffer specifically in the Bay Hill area?
They proposed a buffer. If it's not adequate, then, yeah, please share what you need to see to be happy. We'll get back to that slide. I think it was here. Yeah.
And also on the height of these, I don't want to pigeonhole you into something, but, I mean, you know, it's, right now, it's just kind of a sky's the limit thing, and I don't want to leave it too open either.
48 for which products? 48 for single family? So single family height? Be a maximum of 48, you said? What about townhouses? So single family and townhouse. Is that okay, Mr. Councilman?
What's that?
They're willing to add a condition, the single family and townhouses be a maximum of 48 feet tall?
Yeah.
With these lot sizes as small as they are, a lot of people fence their yard in. Is there any standard to that, to what kind of fence that would be? Because you get everything, and it looks horrible, in my opinion. But I'm concerned about the Bay Hill buffer. What kind of fence would that be? Because that's those people, their backyard.
Jody, do you want to step up and speak?
Yes, we can condition that the Bay Hill fence will be opaque, like you can't see through it, that it'll be a true slat fence with no porosity to it, if that helps. And as far as consistency in yard fences, that's a tough one. You know, if there's a front fence, is it 4 feet? Is it rear 6 feet?
We have a standard in town already, but I just didn't know if you guys were going to further restrict what the town asked for, because, I mean, they take their little yard, and your project is unique with those alleys. I don't know what that looks like.
So, but we could conditionalize that.
But yeah.
We're ready to do that tonight. We could conditionalize that and make it a requirement, not only of a condition, but make it a requirement of the HOA as well.
But you see what I'm saying?
No, I
That
100%
alleyway
do,
is a
right?
unique
Especially with
concept.
homes this close
Well,
together, it's
many
concern,
pet
right?
owners, you know, like 50% of the houses will have a fence because most people have pets.
Right.
Where there's some that just don't mind having the open backyard. Similarly to the fence on Bay Hill Booker Dairy, we can condition that to be opaque as well and not have porosity to it and
But that's
solid
only for
fence.
about 3 houses on Bay Hill.
That is
I mean,
correct,
on
right.
Booker
But
Dairy.
we can condition that it's consistent and it's 6 feet tall, it's wood, it's stained, if you'd like to do that. You know, I go back into coding one type of fence for all residences because part of a neighborhood and part of the hardy plank and part of materials is houses can change colors. There's certain individuality that comes out in the fences. We can code it to fence heights, we can code it to materials, but I'd like to have some diversity because it just adds to the texture of the community. I understand looking down the alley and you want to see something fairly consistent.
Well, specifically, there's ones that are very visible from the public right-of-way or the road.
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely add a standard in the design code to be worked out with Stephen. I don't know how to code it yet.
Yeah. Would that be satisfactory, that a fencing standard or standards be incorporated into the HOA agreement to be reviewed at the preliminary plat?
That sounds
Probably,
reasonable.
yeah. That at least gives us a little bit of something, right? And I understand what you're saying, but also I certainly understand what Councilman Scott's concern, right? Especially in a neighborhood this tight, you know. We've got one chain link, one vinyl, one wood.
Yep.
And you look down and that's what you see. I would rather see, me personally, and we're up here making the conditions, I would rather see consistency.
And again, I abhor vinyl fencing, but somebody may choose it for maintenance, and they don't have to go back and stain it, and the wood
Sure.
doesn't warp and all that. And so, you know, each home is individual, and that's where I was headed with that. You know, the alley I live on, half the homes have fences, half don't. And, you know, it's just a choice.
I think it's more really, to me, because I've seen all the different types of fence too, I think the key is really, it's not necessarily I don't like seeing chain link fence and privacy fences side by side. It does not look good.
I mean,
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm prepared
If
to
we say privacy fences, you
No,
know,
and what I would suggest the code is
No
privacy
chain.
fences to be worked out materials, but no chain link fences.
chain
that's
link.
fine, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm good with that, but you good with that? I had a question, he asked a question, I believe you told me the other day. The houses that are back in facing the road will have a fence. The houses that we can see from the road,
Yes.
the back ends will be covered up with a fence, right?
That is correct.
Only the ones that are facing forward there's no fence on the floor because that we want to see their houses facing.
Correct, and it's only those three houses that are viewed. And again, the two primary framework roads, we've really thought through and put all rear load products, so you won't see driveways on the two main roads. So there's a little bit more kind of thought through that plan on front and backs. So there, you can see it's those three houses that, in the public realm, that you will see.
All right, any other conditions?
So you got the buffer fences, he said would be non-opaque, I think is what he said.
Yeah, I was going to say 6-foot-high opaque.
In other words, you can't see through it.
Correct.
And no chain links, even if you put the grids in there, still I can't do that.
So that'd be Bay Hill and by Booker Dairy.
We haven't addressed the parking issue, but I guess he said that can come later.
He says once he lays it out and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I believe that's what he said.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to determine now until he kind of puts it really all together. And
1, 2, 4. I got 10 new ones.
Okay, that's because I just put the single-family height. Those two,
I got single family and townhouse together.
Okay, that's why we're different, okay.
Stephen, will you go over the conditions that
Sure.
we have, please? And
The new conditions. So the new conditions I have, and we can wordsmith them a little bit if need be. The HOA limit parking to one side of street where roads are 33 feet wide with, I'll just put some sort of
Parking.
marking. Leave it at that. And trash stored in a garage or screened from the public right-of-way. That the ponds have fountains to prevent algae growth. The vinyl siding, no vinyl siding, and that the higher grade materials will be on all sides, something to that effect.
Single-family townhome.
Yeah. All single-family units will have 2-car standard-size garages. There'll be no construction access onto Bay Hill Drive. Single-family and townhouse heights shall be a max of 48 feet tall. The Bay Hill and Bookadary fences shall be 6 foot high and opaque. And that a fence standard be added to the HOA architectural standards to be reviewed at preliminary plat and to include no chain link.
I had one other note, and it's important, Councilman Barber brought this up. The wet ponds need to have some type of fountain or something to prevent the.
It's in there.
Oh,
It's
I'm
in there.
sorry, I was in another zone.
That's what he just said.
Yeah, it's in there.
Variation.
Yeah.
It's 10-10.
All right.
Bless you.
Clocked out.
And then just one more question. The homes that were shown on Front Street as an example, just basically, what is the height of those? Do we know?
And they have to go to get a variance for that?
I think they meet our standard, from what I know.
They have to do something for the increased height.
So, meaning what?
I'd have to go back and review. I don't know what that is.
I'm just curious. I mean, are they higher than 48, or? I wouldn't think
Don't
so.
think so.
But, yeah, okay. All right.
Mayor.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor the building heights, but, are you measuring from the street, right? And all those houses,
They're elevated already. Yeah.
That's where that whole conflict got in, that I was just like, promote good architecture.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Yep. Okay.
Mayor, I haven't heard any discussion, but I have a question for this council. The utilities, will they be underground?
We require
The
all.
power utilities?
I think we require that.
Yeah, we do require that, yes.
Yep. All right. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve, give all of the many conditions of, ever how many there are.
20.
Yeah, we're-
20.
now
Is it
we're-
20?
20, yeah.
I make a recommendation to approve the request with all 20 recommendations.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Sorry you had to stay here so late this evening. Welcome to our world. All right. Business item was,
Consent agenda.
consent agenda is, oh yeah, it goes to get citizens' comments, consent agenda. Yep. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I believe that is it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion and a.
Do we need to discuss our next, or will it just be the June regular scheduled meeting?
Yeah.
So we're done with the budget stuff?
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, we've got
Past
it.
the public hearing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if we need to, we can, but I'd say.
Well, it was
let's
on
not
our agenda
discuss
tonight, I didn't know.
Yeah. no.
We didn't know at the time we made
Okay.
the agenda. Where we got my book?
Do we have, is it already adjourned?
Who made the motion and second to adjourn?
Second.
Oh, Dr. B.
I'll do it.
So a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.